Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
It comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies. Explain this to me, Obi.
Yeah.
A&M, really good at rebounding, right? Or offensive rebounding, right? How did they lose the rebounding battle and offensive rebounding battle to Alabama? Shoot so poorly from the free throw line, not have their best player in Wade Taylor, and still have a chance to win a game against Alabama? Explain that to me.
Scrappy team that's able to force turnovers and get some points off turnovers. But other than that, it's just they willed themselves to stay in that game. Unfortunately, they don't shoot three-pointers very well either.
No.
And so...
So what do they do well? They do offensive rebound well. They do force turnovers well. Bama's a bigger, more athletic team, more talented team, and
healthier team.
And typically, not always, typically that team's going to beat a team that's wounded, that is not as talented.
Yeah, typically. And it's crazy. I think I don't want to I don't believe in moral victories, right?
No.
And I don't want to say, hey, look how great they were in defeat. But it's another example of this toughness, this, heart is the word that's always overused in sports, but just this intestinal fortitude of this team that looking at the numbers, there's no reason to believe that A&M should have been even in the game, and yet with about 20 seconds to go,
they were in the game.
They were shooting to try to tie, and then even later than that, they're shooting a free throw to make it a one-possession game, and of course,
they missed.
So,
I mean this with respect. To me, the price of admission is to be gritty and tough all game long, but it's not always the case, right? And I do think Buzz does a really good job of managing games to make them a game.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's no reason, how many different, was it a 15-point lead 3 different times?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. And I know it was 15-point lead as late as 7 under the 8-minute timeout. 7:41, I think. And
they just, again, this is the kind of team that if you want to change the channel on them because you're just, sometimes I don't want to watch for a few minutes because I'm like, oh, God, they're down by 15 again, right? Don't do that with this team because they will find a way to get back into the game. But I'm with you. I don't believe in moral victories. You are a senior-heavy team or a veteran-heavy team. I expect this from this team. This is where I expect. What I don't expect is for them to shoot as poorly from the free throw line.
Yeah.
Which has been an issue in years past.
Yeah, it has. It's sometimes it's a recurring nightmare, and it came back. If you shoot a reasonable percentage, you win the game. And imagine what that win would have been like, coming back from 15 after you come back from 18 down against Oklahoma, and you could have been 3-0 to start conference play with a win over Alabama. But it's still treacherous, we know, in the SEC, and A&M can't feel bad too long because they got to play Kentucky tomorrow night.
Right.
But, you think about what could have been if you could make free throws. I'll say this. They better figure that part out. And a big part of their success, when they have success at the free throw line, is Wade Taylor because he's such a good free throw shooter. Now, let me add this, too.
Yes, sir.
Pharrell Payne is I came into this season, I may be off on this a little bit, but I think he was less than a 60%, close to a 50% career free throw he goes like 11 or 15. If everybody could shoot like Pharrell Payne did, maybe you win this game comfortably.
Maybe. Wade Taylor, obviously, his importance as the floor general, his ability to score. But could you imagine Wade's 90% free throw shooting in this game?
Yeah.
Just because the ball would be in his hand late, the ball would be in his hand. If they foul him, okay, cool. It's basically Mr. Automatic.
And Wade can be erratic at the three-point line, but he also can get hot, and he can make 3 or 4 just like that, too. So you would have had that more of a threat there. Hey, I just think of it this way. If the roles were reversed and Wade was playing and Mark Sears wasn't, how does that game go?
Sure.
You know, so
Mark Sears was incredible.
Well, he's an incredible player. I think, if I'm not mistaken, well, I know he's a first-team All-SEC guy, and I think he's a preseason All-SEC selection. So he's an outstanding player, and he was outstanding. And they're the highest-scoring team in the nation, and they were again. They scored a lot of points, so you know they're going to score. So you got to take advantage of your opportunities. And unfortunately, A&M missed 20 free throws.
If you look at the box score, you say, wow, A&M scored a lot of points. But part of that is because they did struggle offensively at times, but they scored points. They scored obviously enough points to win the game. But it's the tempo that Alabama plays at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's part of it. And I think A&M would have liked to have controlled the tempo. It's hard to do that, I think, without Wade. And I think Zurich Phelps, his whole makeup is to push the tempo, it seems like.
Yeah.
He's a Corvette driver. And sometimes I think A&M wants to be a truck.
So how does this change the way we look at A&M? It doesn't change it for me at all.
No, not at all. I think, I think nationally, the casual fan probably doesn't even react, right? But the people who are on the committee in March, if they're doing their job, and that's a big if.
That's asking a lot.
Yeah, that's asking, because we've seen that before. But I think most people, if you're really paying attention, look at that game and they say what we just said. Look, if A&M makes their free throws, and they were playing without Wade Taylor, and this game is hanging in the balance with less than a minute to go.
Yep. But unfortunately, or fortunately, they play in the SEC, which means you get to think about this game for 12 seconds, and then you take on another top 10 team.
Again, Kentucky's next.
Yeah.
And you go into Rupp Arena, and if you're thinking about Alabama on Saturday, you're going to lose. You might lose anyway, but it could get ugly. But that's not the makeup of this team. I think they're really good at playing in the moment.
Yeah. Let's talk Hefner for a second, because he's a guy that has been valuable to this team in years past. But recently, his numbers are matching that value or exceeding the value that we've seen from him. He has actually been he's been a plus player.
Yeah, I think he's obviously having his best year. I don't know what the stats are, but I wouldn't be surprised if he has already scored more points than he had in any season before. That may be off. I think for the most part, he's been a role player that his playing time tends to decrease as the season goes on. And yet he's found, maybe he's always had the same role, but they look for him as to be a spot up shooter, but he can do more than that.
Yeah.
He had a play, I think it was Zurich, might have shot an air ball, and Hayden caught it and all in one motion laid it up over his head. You're like, whoa. I remember one time in Tampa at the SEC tournament against Arkansas, and Hayden went crazy, and he had this one time he drives right down the middle of the lane for a two-handed dunk. I'm like, who is this guy?
Who's this guy, right?
Well, that guy showed back up against Alabama. And I don't know that we can count on him to be that all the time, but he's definitely having a really good year. And if he can continue to be a positive player, then I think, there's all kinds of possibilities for A&M, especially when Wade gets back.
If you were to guess, Wade Taylor will not play or will play against Kentucky? If you were to guess.
Okay, I would say, I'm guessing he won't because we're talking about just, 48 hours, 72 hours? If he wasn't good enough to play Alabama at home, I don't know how you get that much better in 72 hours for a road game. Now, I hope he does.
Absolutely, right? And by the way, Wade Taylor playing in that game does not ensure a victory over Alabama because the game is played differently. I think it gives you a significantly better chance for a lot of the reasons we've mentioned. The rebounding was an issue. It wasn't an effort issue. It was just Alabama was better at it on that night.
Well, see, Alabama is so big.
Yep.
They got, 4 guys, 6'10" and 6'11", and then they got good shooters. And
they're good.
Really, all the odds were stacked against A&M except that they were at home.
Yeah.
And yet they found a way. Man, they're like this gnat that won't go away.
Remember we had one in this studio?
And then it turns out that it's like a fly, but it turns out to be a tsetse fly. You know what a tsetse fly is?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
African fly. It's poisonous and it bites you. You can die from it.
Did we know this? Anybody know this?
TSE. Look it up.
TSE?
tsetse fly.
A tsetse fly.
Yeah, so there's just like a fly that's bothering you. It won't go away, but then it turns out to be a tsetse fly.
And then it's poisonous.
Yeah.
What is this, by the way? I'm
reacting to the tsetse fly. I'm trying to dodge it.
Oh, yeah. Do it again.
And Alabama just barely dodged it.
Yeah, they sure did. Hey, it's been a few days. I forgot the name of the show. What is it?
This particular show? This
is
TexAgs
the one
Live.
on the other station. Yes,
this is
TexAgs Live. Presented by a gem of a human, but I forgot his name.
David Gardner. David Gardner's Jewelers.
Yeah. We're in a studio that has a name as well.
Yeah, the Rollo Insurance Studio.
Love
good Jason Rollo and all those good folks over there.
They're great. And this particular hour, we've actually named it. We've put it, this hour gets a name.
Yeah, it's the Go Hour.
How many hours get a name?
I don't know.
I don't
know
that
I know of for sure.
Yeah.
The Go Hour.
And that has a sponsor behind it.
It does.
You forgot?
No, CC Creations.
Oh, thank you very much. In this particular area, like we've actually, we're such a big thing that we sponsor like a section of a room.
Yeah, it's the cool zone. This is the cool zone. It's actually kind of cool in here today.
Yeah, it is a little cool. Holistic planning cool zone.
Yeah, holistic planning cool zone where you can go to them for advice and help in investments, taxes, tax time. It's right here, and estate planning. And most of all those investments, what can you invest in?
I want to invest in the Houston Texans. That's what I want to invest in.
Okay, yeah.
I don't want to invest in Real Madrid right now because we're playing terrible.
Yeah, Barcelona 5-2.
Okay, why you?
Are you surprised that are you shocked that I knew that score? I just saw it come over the crawler last night and I went, oh my gosh, I got to bring that up.
You can go back to Austin. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can do it multiple ways. You can call us up, 979-693-1150. We will pick it up on the Boss Firearms Hotline. You can text us on that same number. Let's go around the room. We say hi to the people behind the glass. Is my friend, colleague, boss, you name it, Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up, son?
Well, like y'all said, no moral victories, right, when you take a loss. But, again, it's a long SEC season. We knew it was going to come at some point. But Luke's pointed this out before. The perception of Aggie basketball this year just feels different nationally, right? Like, even though they lost, people are impressed with how A&M played against Alabama, who's obviously one of the best teams in the country. So it's really impressive that this is distracting me. Sorry, but I was impressed by the effort and long season, right?
Yeah, I hate moral victories. So to me, it's not a moral victory. They lost a game that they could have won. It sucks.
I'm not.
They played. They fought their hearts out. Guess what? I expect them to.
Right. Yes, we expect to. We applaud them. We appreciate their effort.
Would you fight your hearts out or your heart out?
Is it physically possible?
I think for you, it's possible for your heart to come out. Yes. Yeah.
But right. No moral victories. In fact, for me, I'm completely amoral.
That coaching staff is not saying, "Hey, guys, I'm so proud of how hard you fought." Like, look, yes, obviously, I love the fact that they know how to come back. That is a resilient team. That is something that you can't just wish for. It is something that is built in them. That part, absolutely. But I still, win the next one. So you want to make up for that Alabama game? Go to Rupp Arena, beat Kentucky, and then I'll feel much better.
Yeah, and I do love the fact that every team has an identity.
Yeah.
and some are known as a big power team and a fast running team or a good shooting. The identity of this A&M team, I think, is that they're just a bunch of, dogs.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best shooters.
You think?
Yeah, you think. But they just do all the dirty work.
I like that.
And what it takes. They're that guy that does the TV show called Dirty Jobs?
Yes.
If it was a basketball
I like that guy. He was on Rogan the other day.
Mike Rose? Is that
Mike
his name?
Mike Rowe or Rose?
Rowe.
You're both.
So, yeah. So that's that. They're a bunch of role players.
He's got a great voice, by the way. One of the best voices.
Yeah, I have a horrible voice, but you didn't like a bunch of role players.
Role players.
Yeah. Because if you put that down to a basketball team, that's A&M. They do the dirty work, and typically it leads to great outcomes. In this case, they came up a little short.
They came up a little bit short. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Timesheet Callie is there. Callie Gardner works almost every single day except on Fridays. Must be nice, Callie.
Except I was working on Friday, just not in office. But sure.
What's up?
Just a long weekend, but happy to be back.
Good. Happy to have you here. What do you have for us?
I know we've touched on it a little bit today, but the men's basketball team lost to Alabama this weekend. A good game, but just not quite enough to secure the victory. They head to Lexington tomorrow night to take on Kentucky. Women's basketball lost to OU yesterday. They had a really strong second half, but it wasn't quite enough to secure the victory. Also, they got to the free throw line more than they normally do, but they went 3 for 19 from the 3-point, so that's not exactly a recipe for success. They take on Georgia this Thursday, which is a big one for Joni Taylor as her former team comes to town, so hopefully the Aggies can secure a victory there. On the track and field side, Ahmad Robinson ran a 32-34, which set the school record in the men's 300-meter race this weekend at the meet in College Station. Overall, the Aggies won 12 events. They broke one school record, logged 9 top 12 marks in the Aggie history books, and recorded 16 personal bests on the overall day. So they were very successful this weekend.
Kalita, thank you very much. All right, OB, let's hit a break. We'll talk some more basketball on the other side. I also want to talk some college football, the playoffs. I don't know if you know, there was a game on Friday night.
I watched it. That
game had multiple reactions from me. One was like, gosh, dog it, they're not going to do this, are they, too? both things happen within a minute of each other. All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back. Did you prize pick it?
I did not.
Yeah.
I think I've told you, the young man.
He prize picks it.
He prize picked, but he does NBA.
Yeah. I haven't really followed the NBA yet, but it's coming. I'm back into the NFL playoffs, and sometimes I enjoy making the game feel a little bit more important personally, right? If I have no stakes, like I'm a Texans fan, you're a Cowboys fan, and so we already have a lot of stakes there. You want to make it even bigger?
Yeah.
You go to prizepicks.com/TexAgs, use the password TexAgs.
Yeah, it's a difference from a sirloin to make it to a T-bone.
I like T-bones.
I like T-bone.
I think that's your new nickname, T-bone.
Yeah, T-bone.
T-bone.
I like T-bone. T-bone steak. I like T-bone.
T-bone Buchanan.
Yeah, I saw that episode.
Yes, I felt. Anyway, prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs to get $50. Once you play in $5 lineups, it is PrizePicks.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
We are back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. Olin, the text line is popping.
Yeah, well.
Some people are losers, and some people are great.
Well, yes. Yes, I think that's a true statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people are awesome.
What are you basing this on, though?
No, I'm not going to get into it. Just I just wish people would in real life. I just wish they would.
Wish they would what?
I just wish they would. Anyway.
There's a lot of times in my life I've thought, man, I wish they would.
I wish they would too. Like when somebody brought a pie at a text. Remember, that was very nice.
They would bring one to me.
That was for all of us.
Oh, yeah.
I think you took it home, though. But it was like, I like when they do that. That's very kind of them. Hey, David, thank you for your work. Well, it's just, I love A&M. You love A&M as well.
I do.
Callie? Do you love A&M?
Of course I love A&M.
All right.
I don't know if A&M loves me, but I love A&M.
I think A&M does love you, Olin.
You think?
You are
even though I'm not
an advocate for the program.
Even though I'm just a step Aggie.
Doesn't matter. You love the program.
I do.
You do. You root for us.
I do.
And I say us, all of us.
The Aggies.
Yeah.
I am the Aggies. The Aggies am I.
Pharrell Payne.
Pharrell Paint.
My gosh, that guy's been great. I mean, he's been such a, needed presence on this team.
Yeah, and I think he's just coming into his own. He's really been, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I have to look it up, but hasn't he been in double figures like 4 of the last 5 games?
Yes, he has.
Maybe 5 of the last 6. And yeah, I mean, he was sensational.
He has
Alabama.
reached double figures in 5 of his last 6 games.
Yeah, 5 of 6.
Career high against Bama, 23 points. Dude's just been balling. He's been playing well. 67% shooting from the field. 11 of 15 from the free throw line. And that's an area, there's been a couple of games this year, I'm like, ugh.
But you know what? That was amazing because you came in understanding, like a lot of bigs, his free throw shooting historically was erratic.
Yeah.
Obviously, he spent a lot of work on it, so it's important to him. And again, he showed that he will rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
That fortitude. I don't know if he already had it or if he's got it by osmosis from this team, but what an amazing acquisition.
He's been,
he and Phelps both.
He provides a physical presence. He provides offense from there. He provides defense and interior presence.
Well, he had a nice block on, I can't remember, I think it was maybe it's number 8. Maybe it's Sears, I don't know, but he just went up and is one of those like, don't bring that weak stuff in here.
He look, come postseason time, he gives A&M a different way to score. I mean, even now, but I'm saying the ability to go in the paint, and you have to account for him.
Yeah, he's been a godsend, no doubt.
All right, beyond him, offensively, Zerk Phelps obviously provided some offense. I think what they need is they have 3 different ways. They have Wade, who can score for them when he's healthy. You have Zurich, who can score for them in a certain way, and you have Pharrell. Now, who's that other guy? The other night it was Hayden Hefner, right? I think Manny's going to have his days.
Well, Manny went on a tear last year that just changed really the way A&M looked. I mean, what was he scoring like? Seemed like, I know it wasn't, but it seems like 20 points a game for 10 games in a row. So he has that ability without a doubt. I'm still waiting for C.J. Wilcher to be that guy that comes in and can give you maybe 3 3-pointers a game.
Mm-hmm.
Henry Coleman, we don't talk about him a lot. He's a guy that never forces the issue. He said, "What do you need from me tonight?"
Yes, yeah.
And I think
he reads the room.
That is such a valuable attitude, valuable commodity of a guy that doesn't have to say, "Okay, I got to make sure I get my 10 shots, and then everything else will be okay." No, and so he comes in. Hey, what do you need from me tonight? And he pretty much provides it. I know I'm leaving somebody out.
Well, what I was going to say about all of that, OB, is that I hope everybody's...
How about Solo?
Solo. I mean, every time a ball goes up, I feel like I'm going to see him flying across the screen where I didn't see him coming and either alter the shot or block the shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's such a good defensive player, and yet he's not a great offensive player. But if you're not careful, he'll knock down a couple of threes, and he'll get some putbacks. You know, so it really is a good basketball team, and when they're healthy, I think what we've seen from these last two games without Wade, you're like, all right, you played the number 17 team on the road and got down, came back and won, like a James Bond movie. Like, you know, there's always the trials and tribulations, and it looks bad, and oh my gosh, do you expect me to talk? No, I expect you to die. But somehow they come back, and usually, you have they save the day. When Wade comes back healthy, you see what they were able to do without him, and it just makes I think Nick was talking about it. It just gets you excited for the possibilities of what could be. You know, this could be the best team A&M's ever had.
Could.
Or it could be the most disappointing.
And by the way, the segment went a different direction than the first segment, because it's not to say that we are okay with the loss to Alabama. What we're saying is this team came so close in a game without their best player, where many of the things that they do well, at least one of the things that they do well, is usually out offensive rebound teams. They didn't do.
Yeah. And Alabama's one of the top offensive rebounding teams in the country too. I think they came into the game 15th in the nation offensive rebound. The difference is they probably get fewer opportunities because they shoot better. So, I mean, the board work was pretty much, you could have predicted it.
Yeah, you could have. Set a break. OB, after a long weekend of probably eating okay, got to wait till the next weekend, or really the start of the next weekend, which for you is always Thursday. To go.
Life starts on Thursday.
Doesn't it? But why, though? But why, I ask you?
Because on Thursday, 1775 opens up. They're serving their barbecue. They're serving that tremendous brisket, that Texas-style barbecue. They do it. Chef kiss.
If you had a disagreement with a human being and you really wanted to get on the same page, would you take them to 1775?
If I liked them.
What if you didn't? It was an enemy, but you're like, we got to make a deal.
I would. Okay, if I had to make a deal, if I was like Trump, the art of the deal. Thank God we got a week. I would. If Trump came to town, I'd say, you know what? Here's a meal befitting a president, or if the king came up, befitting a king. You take them to 1775, and you get them the brisket, you get them the sausage, you get them the pork ribs, my favorite pork, and then you know what, you get them as a side.
You got to get them the queso mac and cheese. If you don't get them the queso mac and cheese, are you even doing life right?
You even get them a really nice dessert. Who knows what, is it Brandon's wife?
Well,
one of them makes the desserts.
Belinda's the master of size and desserts.
Yeah. Who knows what she's going to, whip up, but there's going to be a fabulous dessert as well.
1775.
So good that David Nuño actually had dessert.
I did actually have a dessert.
Yeah, so that's how, it has to be spectacular.
It was like this. I was like, I'll just have a bite.
Yeah.
I'll just finish it right now in 2 bites.
10 bites.
Open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m. 8203 Raymond Starsford Parkway in College Station, 979-492-6241. It's 1775txbbq.com. Everyone, David Nuño here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season. It is TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan. Monday, January 13th, 2025.
January's going by faster than typically.
Yeah.
It just seems to.
Because basketball's been fun?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
And the college football playoffs have a different level of intrigue?
Yeah. I think that
has something to do with it?
That contributes, yeah.
And we're not far away from the start of baseball season, my friend.
Baseball.
Huh. You know, just
A&M's second favorite sport.
Well, it might be number one right now because we're going to go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. What does the word or the words number one mean to you, Callie Garner?
What I don't know.
What does number one mean to you?
Best in the country.
Well, I was just trying to give you a bad segue to get to your news.
Well, yeah, best in the country. A&M baseball is ranked number one in the D1Baseball preseason poll. It is the first time in program history that the Aggies land that ranking. They finished last season with a 53-15 overall record, which is super impressive. And they're returning almost, every piece, or at least key piece from our 2024 baseball team. So it's a lot to live up to, but exciting. There's a lot of SEC teams in the top 25. There's 6 in the top 10. And we know SEC is always a gauntlet in baseball, but it's going to be good this year again.
When a national program loses a head coach, especially in today's era of college baseball, college athletics, you kind of feel like with a transfer portal, you're going to lose a lot of dudes, or guys will go to the next level and play professionally. This year's team brings back, as Callie mentioned a moment ago, a lot of their studs, and they've added to that list. I mean, Ryan Prager's coming back.
Yeah.
Ryan Prager was fantastic last year. Jace Lavalette, fantastic every year, right? Like, he is fantastic.
It could be even better this year than he was last year.
Gavin Grohovac.
Should be better this year than he was
Gavin
last
Cash
year.
joining the team.
I don't even know that guy.
I believe he was one of the leaders of the Big 12 last year. But regardless.
He's a Texas Tech guy, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Regardless, I don't know how the season's going to play out. Michael Early is going to have to learn on the fly, but he's got a veteran team that has been knocking on the door of a championship.
Okay. So here's my concern.
Here's my response to your concern.
Is I absolutely expect A&M to have a tremendous season. Are they as good as last year? Maybe better.
Yeah.
But that bullpen was so good last year.
Sure.
And it's not the same guys coming out of the bullpen. And what was the kid from Brenham's name?
Evan Ostenbeck?
Ostenbeck, yeah. He was money.
We can't just ignore the impact he had on the team last year. Are they going to have somebody that's going to be able to come in that you just know is going to shut the door like you had last year?
We don't know. Those are all questions. Bronny's in the back. You might be able to provide some thoughts there of the new players coming in and some of the development of the players. But how often does a team that is knocking on the door of a championship, and when I say knocking, how close were they, OB?
They were one run away.
Right?
Maybe one, locating one popped foul ball by the catcher. Maybe if they make that play, that whole game. And that's not to rip on the catcher. I mean, it was just an unfortunate play. It wasn't a bad play.
Right.
It's just unfortunate. Maybe even closer than that.
So returns most of the offense and adds to that offense a record year of offense, and you bring back your ace starting pitcher, your Friday night pitcher. Like
it looks like a team that should be ranked number one.
Yeah, and there's a reason for that. And believe it or not, I like to look into the future and kind of expect and hope for things. Actually, with the help of Bronny, I decided to get Kendall Rogers on the show today. So at 9:35, that new list from D1Baseball, we're going to break that list down.
Good East Texas boy from Lufkin.
Yeah.
Former co-worker of mine.
Good guy.
Yeah, good guy.
Let's go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. I know we've gotten some text messages coming in, some about basketball, some about baseball, and we do still got to talk about the college football playoffs. Callie.
Yeah, we have a bunch of texts about basketball. This one says, we still lack size in the front court. Defensive rebounding should be way better, and we have a no rim protector patrolling the lane. Without Wade, there was no flow on offense. Too much isolation.
And yet they scored 88 points.
Yeah.
But all those things are valid. I
don't know about you, OB, but typically when your best player doesn't play,
you typically
don't play as well.
Right.
Typically, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And
A&M football, their best offensive player last year was Le'Veon Moss, right?
Yeah, he was.
When he wasn't there, it affected the offense. As good as Amari was, it affected the offense.
And that's a sport that has 11 guys out there, not 5.
Yeah.
So when it's only 5, you lose your number 1 guy. Well, I can tell you what, Cincinnati back in 96 or 97 was number 1 in the nation. Kenyon Martin got hurt.
Yeah.
And I think they were eliminated either in the first or second round of the NCAA tournament. Yes, obviously you're a better team. What is Auburn going to be moving forward with John I. Broome out for indefinitely?
Right.
You feel that. It hurts. It hurts you. You're not as good without Wade Taylor. When Wade Taylor gets back, you're going to be a better basketball team. But even without him, you have a road win over a number 17 team and came within a couple of free throws from beating a number 5 team. That a lot of people have picked to win the national championship.
I really like watching Wade on the sidelines, by the way.
Wade's going to be a coach. Wade, if he decides to be. I mean, I know he's going to give it a shot in pro basketball.
Yep.
And I wouldn't bet against him. But ultimately, I see Wade as a basketball coach and a very successful one.
What'd you think Friday night of the game itself, the Ohio State, Texas? Look, Texas is good. I mean, obviously we've known that all season long. But I think they stood a lot closer to Ohio State than I expected.
I think Texas wins the game, if not for 2 coaching blunders. Just before the half, it looked like they went into a blitz, a hard blitz, and when Ohio State would have to, they had less than a minute to go.
Yeah.
And I don't know what they were thinking. It looked like a blitz. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody did something for them, but they got that screen pass that goes for what, a 75-yard touchdown?
75-yard touchdown, yeah.
And, if you're just playing to keep them from, hey, let's just get out of the half. Let's just get to the half. I think they were saying, hey, let's see if we can get a stop and get a chance to add a field goal.
Did you have
then the toss.
Yeah. Oh, the toss. Well, I found it very interesting. Go ahead, Obi. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, but I'm not going to be too critical because how many times have we said, well, don't just run inside, try something different, right? In their case, though, they actually run inside typically pretty well.
I found it somewhat interesting that the A&M game came down to that 4th and 1. It was other factors, but if those 4th and 1s look different, the game feels different, right? A&M, Texas?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. And I think Clemson also had a couple of those situations, and that they weren't able. And it's now Texas on the other side of it against the Ohio State front that has it 1st and 1 on the 1, right? 1st and goal on the 1, and they can't punch it in.
Yeah, but they only tried once.
And I found that interesting. Well, I think they only tried once because they were having problems all game long. They should have tried more than once.
Look, it's easy to second guess. They're proud of their offensive line, and I'm giving my offensive line, if it's that dominant, I'm giving them more than one shot at it.
Yep, I agree.
And here's my question there. Was Arch came in early, and he got hit and almost fumbled. Maybe he did, but they didn't call it. Almost, I'm not saying he did. But he's really effective, as we know, in those short situations.
Yep.
Was Arch hurt? If not, why aren't you bringing in Arch in that situation?
Yeah.
So, I saw actually Texas fans on Twitter ragging on Quinn Ewers. I'm like, on that, what's he? Ewers was the least culpable person on that 4th down play. Sawyer just comes off the edge like nobody even touched him, and you can't just throw the ball away to avoid the sack. It's 4th down.
Is this a real rumor that Quinn could end up at Ohio State next year? Is that a real thing?
He's been there before, so why not?
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like that'd be very interesting.
Look, it's college football these days. We just saw Carson Beck decide to go to Miami, where he's reportedly making between $3 and $4 million next year. So he can make more money next year playing in college than he would his first year.
Yeah, I think they said Will Levis. I think it was Will Levis. The example I saw used was going to make $900,000 this year.
Yeah, if you're right, because So I don't understand why guys are so quick to leave, especially now that you can make money and a lot of it, because everybody. What do they say that unfortunately youth is wasted on the young?
Yeah.
Everybody I know, I'm 100%. They'll talk about the best years of their lives. And they would say, yeah, that's when I was in college.
Heck yeah.
Then why do you want to leave? Especially if you can make millions of dollars to stay.
But OB went, well, I wasn't going to make millions of dollars, but when I was a senior in college, I could not wait for the next phase of my life. Now, I wasn't looking at a lot of money on the other side, but like to me, I was like, I'm just ready to start the next chapter. And so I think for some folks, that's what it is. For others, like, especially in this NIL world and this transfer portal world, and like, why not stay and play more? And hopefully enhance your draft status. And if you don't enhance your draft status, potentially that's, I understand a first round pick. That I get, right? Mm-hmm. But if you're not a first round pick, why not stick around and get better? And if you're not, I know they always say the injury side of things.
Take out an insurance policy.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you get hurt, you're going to make $20 million. Okay. I can afford it because you're paying me $3 million to stay anyway.
Sure.
And the university might pay for it anyway. By the way, A&M is the one, a lot of people don't realize this. A&M was the pioneer in starting the insurance policies for its players back in, I think, the 80s or 90s. But I don't get, so back to your question, if Quinn Ewers ends up at Ohio State or anywhere, maybe he's going to end up at Notre Dame. It wouldn't surprise me, and quite frankly, it might be
it might be a smarter,
prudent financial move.
Yep.
To me, what's interesting is why, if you're Texas, if he's willing to play another season of college football, why aren't you doing everything you can to get him to stay there? He has gotten you into the playoffs 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
We always want the other thing.
I wonder what's going to happen with Arch next year.
He might be better, but
he might be.
He might be worse.
And I wonder what's going to happen with Sark. Kurt on the YouTube page says, Sark to the Cowboys?
Yeah, I can't believe that Kurt was selfish enough to ask that question to CDC, the Center for Disease Control. To me, that's a win-win. You don't have to like him because he coaches at
He's a good coach.
Texas, but you got to acknowledge that, you know, he's not perfect.
Hey, my opinion of him,
a good job.
My opinion of him has changed because before we got to Texas, and really his first couple years at Texas, I looked at him as a career 500 coach,
and he was,
that's who he was. But as information has come out, he's a pretty good coach.
I'll tell you something. Why do interns come to TexAgs? To learn and take what they learn and help them be better at their career.
Sure.
Well, he basically interned under Nick Saban.
And he learned. He did. All right, we'll hit a break. Southwood Valley time, Animal Hospital. That's where Dr. Justin Casares works, also Dr. Lauren Casares. They took over ownership a couple years back, and they're awesome. If you have pets, you really need to consider going there. If you're a student, they're going to hook you up. If you're a TexAgs subscriber, they're going to hook you up. They've been around for 30 years, and they want to make sure that you know they provide all the routine veterinary services, wellness visits, sick and emergency visits, and surgical care. They also have very affordable prices. They're elevating medicine here in the Brazos Valley. If you're a new client and you listen to TexAgs, which hopefully that's why you're listening to this right now, tell them that you're a TexAgs listener. They're going to give you $12 off your first visit when you go there. And if you're a student, they're just going to hook you up for being a student. So visit there. SouthwoodValleyVet.com is the website. SouthwoodValleyVet.com. 979-693-9898. That is 979-693.
Doing some animal sound
Sounded like
effects.
something else.
Have you seen your dog ever pant?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Woof, woof.
I wish you guys would have had a camera on him. As I said, 979-693-9898. It is Southwood Valley Vet. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Appreciate everybody listening in this morning. Go Hour coming to a close, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. We go back to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. All right, Callie, more text messages, more about basketball, maybe a little bit about baseball.
More about basketball. We've got one about basketball. It says the OU game, I think they shot a pretty high percentage from the free throw line. It's why they got the win.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, they win the game if they shoot a better percentage at the free. They missed 20 free throws. That's where they lost the game. Okay, you lost. I knew they weren't going to go undefeated through SEC play. That was a frustrating one because it was there to beat a.
Yeah.
And if you win, all of a sudden people start like Lenardi and those guys start talking about A&M as a 2 seed. Can they play themselves into one? Look, that I wanted to win. There are no moral victories. I am as amoral as anyone, but. It doesn't hurt them from a national outlook. It doesn't.
No, but
it was there. You want it. It was there if you shoot your free throws.
Get it right this week against Kentucky, right?
Tomorrow night?
Yeah.
God, already. I once had a friend who covered basketball, and he liked to cover basketball more than football. I said, why? He said, because I don't have to do all the pregame stuff. I have 2 games, maybe 3 in 1 week, and I don't have to worry about all that pregame stuff. That was a very genius way to look at it.
Well, look, you can get over a loss quicker, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. You can also get upset about a loss for a little bit longer, too, if because losses start to mount.
And it's Kentucky on the road. It sure as heck isn't easy.
No.
And what do they rank 6th?
Mm-hmm.
6th and on the road? But if you can get
without Wade, potentially?
But if you can get that win.
You can get that win.
Huge feather in your cap.
Obi, thank you.
They have so many feathers in their cap, it's going to look like a headdress.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you. When we come back on TexAgs Live, Tom Hart will be joining us. We'll chit-chat with Tom for a little bit. After that, Kendall Rogers, talk about A&M being number 1 in the D1Baseball poll. And then Billy Liucci, Buzz Williams in the 10 o'clock hour. And your text messages at 979-693-1150 is TexAgs Live. Hey, we're back here at TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. A lot of college basketball to get into, college baseball news earlier, and of course the college football playoffs. We go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. We're joined by our good buddy Tom Hart of the SEC Network and ESPN. Tom, what's up, buddy?
Good morning. There's still snow on the ground in Atlanta, man. Winter is here. This is kind of a weird deal.
How often does it snow in Atlanta?
Not very often.
Okay.
I mean, it's maybe once every couple of years.
Okay. It's like, I guess here it's probably less than that. What, it's every 4 or 5 years here maybe that it snows? 3 years? Every 3. So, yeah, basically the same place. You've been traveling, buddy, which is this time of year where you got multiple places in a week, 3, 4 stops potentially. But I want to start things off with the A&M Alabama game. Let's start there. The Ags played without Wade Taylor. Valiant effort, no doubt about it. They couldn't hit free throws, unfortunately. Any takeaways at this point of the season for A&M that is going to now go to Kentucky, potentially without Wade Taylor again? And just this early part, they have some good grace because they had those first 2 early wins, but now obviously having their first loss to Alabama.
Well, I think the difficult part of it is it's not just losing to Alabama. A lot of teams are going to lose to Bama. That's a really good team that has kind of flown under the radar because they didn't get off to the incredible start everybody expected, not only out of the program, but out of Mark Sears. And you probably saw the best of Sears on Saturday. I think he went for 27. But the biggest shocker in the league over the weekend, and A&M falls in this category, is that half of the home teams lost. And what we anticipate to be a really tight race, especially in the top half of the league, to give away home games can be debilitating. My biggest takeaway is, I was impressed with the way they played in the second half against Texas when Wade was on the bench nursing. I think he had a heating pad on his groin for a good chunk of that second half when I was there. And so for Zerk Phelps to be available as a go-to guy is huge, and it's going to keep them in and win them some games if they're going to be without Wade for a while. But they've got to be more efficient. I mean, he took a lot of shots to get to his point total, turned the ball over 4 times. Just the little stuff on the edge that you don't get from him that you get from a veteran like Wade Taylor, who's played in this league and knows the flow of games in this league. But then the other thing specifically is I thought defensively, I was kind of bouncing around among practice and grabbing lunch and this, that, and the other. And, I'm watching that game as it's going to the half, and I was like, Alabama's got 52 at the half. This is done. You can't allow Alabama to get to the line that often and to drop 50 and a half, which obviously they can do because they have an incredible offense. But A&M was going to win that game if it was more of a slow down game, more of a defensive minded game, and shooting a combined 322 free throws is not doing anybody any favors.
Well, the presence of Pharrell Payne, he was huge in this game, 24 points, hit his free throws, gives A&M a different dynamic there in the paint. Look, I hope Wade comes back immediately. They need him in Kentucky for sure at Rupp Arena. That being said, the fact that this team, I think, can beat you different ways than in years past, and obviously this is coming off a loss where you didn't win the offensive rebounding battle. You missed 20 free throws. That being said, it was right there for them. And the reason it was right there for them is because of how steady Pharrell Payne was.
And I didn't notice Henry Coleman had a double-double at 12 and 11. Yeah, I'm just checking out the box score once again. I mean, he went to the free throw line, Payne did 15 times in 24 minutes. That is amazing. And Alabama's weakness is on their front line, and specifically Grant Nelson is a guy who was foul prone, fouled out of that game. He fouls out of every game. He gets stuck playing positions he shouldn't be in. He's more of a stretch 4 guy. He's trying to defend post players is not good. I hear what you're saying, and I think the question is, where do we want to be? What's the goal for this team? What's the ceiling? It's really, there are a lot of positives to point to. The play of the front line, even Phelps's play without Wade on the floor. But you can't afford, even against elite teams, if you think you're elite and if you're competing for a conference title, or you want to be easily a second weekend team, it's hard to give up home games. And I think that's as this race kind of starts to settle, I thought Saturday was eye-opening, the number of really good teams that went on the road and won on the road against other really good teams. Maybe there's more separation in this league than we thought.
Tom, you cover a lot of teams, obviously. When you, in years past or even this season, when teams struggle from the free throw line, do you see that as something that gets worked out during a season, in a particular season, when a team does struggle? And, the 20 is not a microcosm of the year. That's a terrible number. It's not something we've seen from them this year. That being said, do these things get worked out?
Oh, that's a great question. It really depends on the leadership within the team. I've never felt like free throw efficiency is something that a coaching staff can force upon you, right? I mean, and I've seen teams that are terrible free throw shooters that are great scoring teams that work on it constantly. And I've seen teams that are terrible free throw shooting teams that are good scoring teams that don't work on it. That just, it'll come around. We'll figure it out. I mean, it seems like no matter how you attack it, to me, it's all about, it's like a golfer. Like I can give you tips to read putts better and get you a different putter. But if you have the yips, you have the yips. Like, that's on the golfer. It's not on the coach or the trainer or anybody else. If you have the leadership within that room to say, hey, we really need to be hyper-focused on this. We're going to be in big games. And by nature of how we play, the style we play, we're going to be in a lot of close games. And I think that's true for A&M, right? Because we know what their strengths and weaknesses are. But I think the other thing to keep in mind is that a couple examples I gave at the start of my answer were about great shooting teams. I'm not sure this is a great shooting team. It might just be who they are, and a team that's going to have to win games by living on the offensive glass, what they do really well, by not turning the ball over, which generally they do, and they only had 8 turnovers against Bama, and by playing really hard-nosed, stout, impenetrable defense, which generally A&M does, just didn't on Saturday. So maybe the answer is this is just who they are, because they don't seem to be, in the numbers would suggest that as a perimeter shooting team, that's not the strength of the squad.
Who's the best team you've seen this year? I mean, you were just in Austin for the Tennessee-Texas game. You've seen them all. Who's been the best team you've seen so far?
I think the best team is Kentucky. Like, collectively, what they're getting out of the guys that are on the floor. They don't have a McDonald's All-American on that roster, which is the first time you can say that. No, I take it back. They have one. I'm sorry, they have one. The kid who transferred in from Oklahoma State. And they haven't had only one in like 15 years. So that's a pretty low total for them. Tennessee has the potential to be. I haven't seen Auburn in person. Certainly things change without Jedi Broom on the floor because he's such a key to their offense. But outside of Iowa State, it's easy to see how, most of the top teams in the country reside in this league. And so I think we're going to be exposed to a lot of teams' flaws, and that's going to be evident because they're being compared to other beauties at the top of the scale here. So I think the best one I've seen in person so far has been Kentucky, but Tennessee is right there with potential. They didn't play great against Texas, so they didn't look like the number one team in the country when I saw them. That doesn't mean they're not, and their resume certainly only has one stain on it, which is the blowout loss to Florida.
A little rough start for both Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC. What have you seen from them?
Well, I haven't seen Oklahoma in person yet. I thought that they were probably playing above their talent level based on being one of the last undefeateds. Their run in Atlantis was great, and they deserve a lot of credit for that, and they have one of the best freshmen in the country. But they were picked at the bottom of the league. They weren't expected to be what they are already. And Georgia already beat Kentucky at home, so there's no shame in going on the road and losing at Georgia. Texas is fascinating to me because they're sitting there without a win in the league. They have one of the best freshmen in the country in Trey Johnson. They have all these pieces, but I just think it's really hard. Like Arkansas is kind of in the same boat. Like, there's talent, and you see it in flashes, but you can't just flash your way to a win in this league. Like, Trey Johnson at one point took over the Tennessee game Saturday evening, and he was going off like a superstar does, and then Tennessee got the ball out of his hands, and they forced Texas to make other decisions and play 4-on-4 and 3-on-3. And there just weren't enough other weapons for Texas to beat a top team on their home floor. So I think it's going to, I don't want to single out those two, but it's going to be a long year for a lot of teams in the bottom half of the league, bottom third of the league, just because you can be a great team and have a 3-game losing streak in this league. The talent that you face, and we had this number, sorry to ramble, but the numbers that this league put up in the non-conference, better than any league since the ACC 83-84. And if you know college basketball history, that was Michael Jordan, Len Bias, Sam Perkins, Mark Allery. I mean, that was an ACC team that was absolutely the ACC league that was loaded. So there's no rest in this league. You're facing top talent every time out.
Talking to Tom Hart on the Boss Firearms Hotline here on TexAgs Live. All right, Tom, we talked a little bit about Kentucky. Beyond it being a different type of Kentucky team, what have you seen from them? They can shoot the 3-ball, they can run. What have you seen from Kentucky?
Yeah, it's not just that they shoot the 3-ball. It's similar to Alabama in that they insist on shooting the 3-ball. Alabama gets probably a few more rim twos. Alabama isn't shooting the 3 at a very good clip this year, actually. They're just sitting they've been sitting around 32, 34% for a good chunk of the year. Kentucky shoots it really well from 3, and they've got guys that come at you in waves who shoot it well from 3. They are the type of team, and we wouldn't have said this about Calipari's teams, even when they had a lot of talent on them, where they have legitimately a different guy can beat you every night, and that can go 8, 9 deep. I thought they'd be a better defensive team. Lamont Butler, one of their guards, is an elite one-on-one defender. He's going to be guarding Phelps, or if Wade plays, he's going to be on Wade. So they take a lot of pride on both ends of the floor. I just haven't seen the defensive effort consistently from them, and that surprised me a little bit. So you can get some points on them, you can score on them, but they have a very wide and varied offensive attack. Jackson Robinson, who transferred in from BYU, but originally was at Arkansas and A&M, like he's had a flash here and there. He's supposed to be their star player and go-to guy. There are nights where he's not, but it's fine because they have other talent that can really step up. We'll take Oweh, who's at Oklahoma last year, is legit. I mean, that's a loaded team, and they play with great energy and great spirit, and they get that from Mark Pope.
Tom, this sounds like a ridiculous question because they're in the championship game, but football-wise, how good is Notre Dame? They only have one loss. We know that loss came in week 2 after they beat A&M. They lost to Northern Illinois. Since then, they have been flawless. They haven't had the same road that Ohio State has. Ohio State's knocked off Oregon, knocked off Texas. Tennessee. What do you think about this matchup?
It's fascinating. I think if we just rated this on recruiting stars, Ohio State wins this thing by 3 touchdowns. It's not to say Notre Dame doesn't have talent, but they're not explosive offensively, especially if Jeremiah Love, their starting running back, is limited with the knee injury, and he looked really limited the other night, in terms of cutting and getting upfield off of cuts. So straight ahead, he's still fine. He's a dynamic athlete. But Notre Dame, Notre Dame has never, nor will they ever be the plucky underdog, right? There's nobody who's watching college football is like, oh, I just hope those kiddos from South Bend finally catch a break and can pull one out. That's not the Notre Dame definition, but I think against Ohio State, it is a little bit. And it's also because of how they win games. The Sugar Bowl, from a special teams perspective, and I think we talked about this a little bit, that was fascinating special teams execution. Yeah, you get a 98-yard kickoff return, and that's huge, and that grabs a lot of headlines. But they had a play on 4th down where they had the punt team on the field, and they ran them off, and they ran the offense on late, and Kirby and his guys got confused. And there was about 3 or 4 different ways Notre Dame could have picked up a first down when they ran the punt team off. And the most obvious way was to pick up a penalty, and that's exactly what happened to get Georgia to jump. So I think Marty Biaggi, the special teams coach, does a tremendous job. I don't know that the national championship comes down to special teams because Ohio State is so incredibly talented at every position. But if Notre Dame can kind of keep it in the mud and trade some big punches and steal a possession here or there, then yeah, they can do it. I'm disappointed in myself, David, that I'm talking about Notre Dame as if they're a plucky underdog, because everybody knows they're not an underdog. But from a talent perspective, it feels like they are.
Well, we talked last week about narratives changing for James Franklin, Marcus Freeman, Ryan Day, and for Marcus Freeman, I think he's, regardless of what happens this weekend, I think he's in a good place. Ryan Day, I also feel the same way about that. He's got these signature victories on the road to the playoffs. But if he does win it, it certainly changes his entire story.
It's so fascinating, isn't it? I mean, that fan base is living on the razor's edge right now. I mean, they are still furious with him over the Michigan game. I mean, furious. And I see the frustration. He only scored 10 points. I mean, it's a $20 million roster. You scored 10 points against Michigan, and you can't beat the rival. I get that. I have a hard time understanding that fan base and what position Ryan Day is in right now, and I think the Ohio versus the world mantra was never really cute because Ohio State's never been an underdog. They have everything that they need to win there. But now I start viewing that tagline as it's all of us in this football building against our fan base. We are so insulted the way you guys talked about us after the Michigan game. We don't need you to go out and win a big game. That feels and sounds toxic when you say it that way. So I don't know what the end game is. I don't know what Ryan Day's options are, win or lose in Atlanta next Monday night. But I'm really curious how this plays out, not just a year from now, but 2, 3, 4 years from now.
Tom, I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but Feinbaum says something to the effect of, had this been last year's playoffs, we'd probably be having a Texas-Georgia championship game, not what we have right now, because Ohio State wouldn't have made it. I think Notre Dame would have been in the mix, obviously, with 13-1, but maybe they didn't have the signature win.
I was thinking about that last week. My buddies and I were talking about the teams that we ended up with versus where we would have been. And I think what you're going to have, and this is only guesswork, but I think this is going to be the norm where, Ohio State, while they may not have been in this game in the previous iteration of the playoff, they're obviously one of the most talented teams in the country. And they're built to win a national championship. And Notre Dame, would have probably been in that bubble conversation based on the loss to Northern Illinois, but they've blown everybody out since then. I mean, that's the thing. Like, they didn't just start winning games. They started torching people by 20, 25 points a game. What I think you're going to find, and I'm totally cool with this, is I think the Cinderellas and the great stories and Cam Scadaboos and all that, that's going to be the focus of the early rounds of this tournament going forward. And very similar to what we have in the NCAA tournament on the men's basketball side, in the end, it's usually the teams that deserve to be there, right? Not very many Cinderellas slip all the way through to the Final Four. And I think that's a way to build interest in this sport. I think it's a good way to do it. Like, you get a lot of interest from the underdogs early, but the powers keep standing. And I want to see this 12-team playoff get an identity and get a couple years with some slight modifications. Obviously, the bracketing needs to be changed. I'd like to see the home field situation be addressed in the second round of the playoffs. But let's kind of get a feel for what this is before we start overhauling the thing.
Tom, I don't think you've started your prep for baseball yet. Maybe you have.
No.
But
I'm following Kendall Rogers on Twitter. Does that count?
That's what I do.
Getting all the hate? Yeah.
Bronny and Kendall Rogers. But what I was going to say is that D1Baseball has A&M as their number one team in the country as of right now. Perfect Game had A&M as their number one team. Look, there are some questions around, not necessarily the roster. There's some questions around the pitching staff and Michael Early's first year. But what a way to start off this year, especially the way last year ended.
I haven't seen all the polls. Where is the team from Austin?
I don't know where they are in D1s. I know they're
I think
number
they were
7.
19th in D1.
Sorry, say that again, Nick?
19th.
19th in D1, and they are 7th in perfect game.
Okay. That's a pretty wide variance, but I just can't wait. I cannot wait for that series. And it's gonna be amazing. Yeah, when you have that level of talent, did you hear? By the way, did you see or hear Rick Barnes' quote this weekend about Chaz Lanier? So Tennessee, for people who haven't seen Tennessee basketball, they have one of the best scorers in all of college basketball. Chaz Lanier had been leading the SEC about 19.7 points a game. Tennessee drew up a play for him to start the second half. He hesitated. He passed the ball. One thing led to another. The ball ends up out of bounds. Rick Barnes yanks him out of the game 11 seconds into the second half. And Barnes says after the game, and he said this with a smile, but he said it nonetheless. He said, I told him, we ran the play for you to shoot the ball. That's what you get paid to do. You're paid to do that. If you don't want to do that, then you come over here and sit by me. And Barnes said it with a smile, but the message was delivered. Like, when you're a singular talent and we ask you to do something in this day and age of college sports, it's your job to do that, to execute. Now, keep in mind, he didn't say, I pulled him because he didn't make the shot or because he missed 4 in a row. No, he pulled him because he didn't run the play, because he didn't take the shot. And that was the message he was getting. So I was just reminded of that because of all of the talent that's on this A&M roster. If there is a responsibility for those guys in that locker room to now go from where they were last year to take the next step. And, they're going to be doing that for the draft purposes anyway, but other guys who are another year away from the draft, all right, how can I get better individually? Because that might be the most talented offensive roster in the game right now, right? I mean, at least by historical performance. But you've got to go out there and perform and put those numbers up. The numbers have to be better than they were last year. That's the bottom line. As a team, your numbers have to get better.
They were so close, Tom. They were so close. Offensively, they may be better. Pitching wise, they bring back Ryan Prager. I think that's a huge deal to have your Friday night ace back. There are questions for sure, because there's questions every year, but heck of a way to start the year. Enjoy your week, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, man. Great to see you.
Great seeing you too. Tom Hart on the Boss Firearms Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Around Aggieland. Right now, we're talking Heritage Films. They make documentary films about families. You can check it out at yourheritagefilm.com. Somebody texted the show that's just on, one of the leaders in the hunting community, that I should do a documentary film about when I go hunting. And that's not a bad idea. Hook up with my friends at Bird Dog. That being said, they can do a documentary about anything. They can do it about your father, his story, your mother, her story, your family business, your family ranch, somebody in your family that is just one of the leaders. It can be about a group of friends that get together and they play golf every weekend. They do tailgating together, whatever it may be. Let Chance and his team tell that story in a 2-hour documentary form that I think you are going to absolutely love. The website is yourheritagefilm.com, yourheritagefilm.com. You can call them up, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341. It is Heritage Films. And we are back here on TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for everyone's favorite Around Aggieland, presented by Normandy State Bank. Normandy State Bank, rock solid banking. The website is normandystatebank.com. And with that, we have the Kay Naegeli.
Good morning. How did you take in the beautiful basketball game we saw this weekend?
I don't think it was that beautiful. It was beautiful.
I'm being optimistic.
I watched it from home. I watched it with the kiddos.
You didn't?
Isla does not like to miss, my youngest does not like to miss a minute of Aggie basketball.
I love that.
So oftentimes I like to watch it with her so we can take it in together.
You ever going to take her?
Yeah, she went to the game against Texas. She was there.
Oh.
She was there.
That one right there?
She was probably somewhere
the beautiful
there.
Background we got?
There might be a player or two that she follows every second of play.
Okay.
So just saying. Like,
hey, whatever gets her into it, you know?
But she loves, she'll watch, she loves the Chiefs.
Yeah?
So this weekend we may be at odds.
Big Travis Kelce fan?
She's a big Patrick Mahomes fan.
There you go. I like that.
But yeah, she does like Kelce because of your girl. What's her name? Swifty, whatever.
Tay-Tay.
She's a big Swifty.
Tay-Tay, is that what we call her?
Totally on topic here.
Yeah.
Just get off on a tangent. Anyways, let's talk about the basketball game, shall we?
You can. I'm just going to watch.
We shall. We've talked a lot about it already. Just to brief synopsis, A&M shot just 58% from the free throw line, not very good, and lost the rebounding battle by 8 as Alabama took the first ever top 10 showdown at Reed Arena. The Aggies saw their 9-game winning streak snapped, unfortunately. They were on a heater there in front of a sold-out Reed Arena. They will now travel to Lexington for a Tuesday night clash with Kentucky. Just had Tom Hart on. He was talking all good things about Kentucky. That is a program that's been dominant for over a number of years, so that should be a good one. Also, AP poll will come out later today. We will find out where the Aggies are ranked. They were previously ranked 10, so we'll find out where they are, as well as Kentucky. On the women's basketball front, also not a good outing for Joni Taylor's Aggies. They shot an anemic 18.9% from the field in the first half, just not a good shooting effort to start off. That led to a 77-62 loss at number 10, Oklahoma. That was in Norman. Aisha Coulibaly, AC, she led the Aggies' offensive efforts, as she always does. She's the team's leading scorer, providing a 7-point third quarter to trim the deficit to 21. Unfortunately, they can never overcome it. The Aggies will have their first unranked conference opponent. They've played 4 straight ranked opponents in Georgia when they will come to town on Thursday, January 16th. That is a 7 p.m. tip. We talked about it a little bit earlier, but to begin Michael Early's campaign in Aggieland, A&M sits atop the D1Baseball rankings. They are at number 1, coming off a wonderful year last year. They have a ton of veteran talent returning and also a ton of transfers to be super, super excited about. We have a lot of people pumped in this office about Aggie baseball. We are just 32 short days away when they kick off on Valentine's Day. Should be exciting. On the women's tennis front, they capped off the Winman and Foundation Invitational with a trio of doubles victories to push their overall record to 28-7 at their week in Hawaii. They will host their first dual match of the season on Saturday, January 18th against Prairie View A&M at the Mitchell Tennis Center. On the men's tennis front, they concluded the 7th Sun Devil preseason invitational with a 29-15 record at the Whiteman Tennis Center on Friday. They will also have their Hona opener on January 19th against UTSA. And last but not least, want to cap us off with some track and field. Ahmad Robinson set a school record with a time of 32:34 in the men's 300 meter. That highlighted the Aggies' 12 events wins at the McFerrin 12-degree Invitational. That was on Friday. That is a 4th fastest time run by a collegiate athlete ever in the 300 meter.
Wow.
Pretty good accomplishment by Ahmad there. I believe we'll be talking to him on Texas Aggies United later if you want to catch that interview. And then the Aggies won 12 events, broke 1 school record, like I said, and logged 9 top 12 marks in Aggie history. Also, 16 personal bests recorded. So it was a good weekend for A&M track and field.
Okay, great job. Thank you very much.
Of course.
When we come back on TexAgs Live, we'll talk about that baseball team with Kendall Rogers from D1Baseball. Right now, you know about our partners at Bird Dog, great friends of ours, and they're going to set up all your hunts, right? They're the ones who get it all set up for you. They're an Aggie-owned operating company that creates access to hunting opportunities. They are basically an Airbnb for hunting. So you can go on the site, you can see the options that are out there. They're going to set up all the logistics for you. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere, 5-star ranches, you name it. They will take care of it. They still do all of that, but they're also adding along with adding to their family of ranches, I should say. They want to let you know that landowners are making money thanks to their efforts behind the scenes. It's not just getting folks on your land. They're helping landowners aggregate tax benefits. So if you're farming or running cattle on your land, Bird Dog's going to help optimize and find you those tax benefits. Some of their clients are making an extra $100 to $500 per acre of land. They can be your personal consultant and help you maximize income on your land. So if you're a rancher or a broker, you need to talk to them as they can help the buyer or your buyer, seller, understand the additional ways to make money. The website is birddogit.com. That is birddogit.com. Go check it out. All right, we're back here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's talk a little Aggie baseball. Number one in D1Baseball's most recent preseason rankings this morning. It just came out at 8 a.m. We go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. That's where we find Kendall Rogers of D1Baseball. Kendall, what up, buddy?
Oh, not too much. It's good to talk to you.
So last week I reached out to you because I heard that the rankings were coming out. I was not sure where A&M was going to be. I was hoping they'd be number one, but I figured they'd be in the top three. Why is Texas A&M number one?
I think the biggest thing for me is I always look at teams that get right on the cusp of a national championship. And, obviously those teams are always ultra motivated the next year, even if they lose a bunch of guys. And this is a team that has a bunch of pieces back, and the pieces they added are also ultra experienced pieces. We can go back and look at, A&M's ability and Mike's ability to keep, the returning guys on campus, but let's not forget he was able to get Gavin Cash. Wyatt Hensler was the guy that really could have just picked wherever he wanted to go, yet he stuck with his commitment. And so I just think when you look at the returning pieces, and then you look at how good the transfers are, particularly, Cash, who was awesome in the fall, and Hensler, who, set, all sorts of Ivy League records, the sky's the limit for this team. Obviously, they're going to have to go out there and prove it. But, given what they went through in the offseason, given how last season ended just on the field, I don't think that's going to be an issue. I don't think focus will be a concern with this team at all.
So, Kendall, where do you maybe have some questions about this roster or this team?
Yeah, I think, anybody would look at I guess, coaching would be the wrong way to say it, but how does A&M moving forward, especially Mike Early, how does he manage late in the game? You're in the SEC, you're going to be in series where it's going to be 7-7 in the eighth. How is Michael Early as a manager? We all think he's a good coach. We all think he connects with the kids really well, but how does he manage late in the game? I wouldn't say it's a concern. I would say it's more of we don't really know. So, what do we expect? So that's one thing I kind of keep an eye on. The other thing I would kind of pinpoint would just be the back end of the bullpen. It's not that I'm concerned about it from a talent standpoint. The talent is absolutely there. I'm a big fan of guys like Clayton Freshcorn. Grant Cunningham was electric at Washington last year, et cetera. But again, you're losing one of the best ever in Evan Ashenbach, and it'd be disrespectful to him to say, oh well. Even with him gone, they're not going to skip a beat, because they will skip a beat to some degree. The question is how much. And so that would be the only two concerns I have. Obviously, I feel great about Ryan Prager at the front of the rotation. We talk about motivated. The fact that he came back after being offered, around $1.3 million from the Angels kind of gives you an idea of where his mindset is. Justin Lampkin, I feel like, is to me, is kind of the guy I circle as a breakout candidate. I thought his numbers last year were a little worse than what he really pitched. And then, the other guy for me that I'm sky high on is Caden Wilson. I think we all kind of saw that a little bit in Omaha last year, how electric he can be. But I think Caden Wilson's another guy for me that's going to take a massive leap. I think he's going to be pretty special this year.
For those who haven't watched Gavin Cash play, tell us a little bit about, because obviously he had a good fall. He has great numbers. How he fits in with this team.
Yeah, Gavin has arguably the most interesting career I've ever seen in my life. Apparently, he's on the rivalry tour because, he started at Texas. He went to Texas Tech. He's at A&M. I joked with somebody at the ABCA last week that maybe he'll just get another year and go to TCU or something. But he's had certainly an interesting path. But, he's the Big 12 Player of the Year 2 years ago at Texas Tech. Obviously massive power. Last year, I say his season didn't go that great. The guy well over double-digit home runs and a lot of RBIs. But, the swing and miss was up for him last year. I think when you look at what he did in the fall, I didn't see that. Granted, it was one scrimmage. But, honestly, I thought Gavin Cash was the best hitter I saw in the scrimmage against U of H. He was, the zone awareness was really good. He pounded the baseball. He just looked locked in. And again, we liked all the returning guys, but I tell you what, if Gavin Cash returns to who he was 2 years ago, you're talking about a lineup that literally does not have a weak link. And so that to me is kind of an X factor, because, you kind of assume that he's going to be a guy that's going to hit, 285 like last year and with a lot of home runs, but a lot of strikeouts. But if he can cut those strikeouts down, I mean, he's as good as anybody on that team, outside of maybe Jace.
Well, I'm looking at the potential lineup that Bronny put out there. I mean, Caden Kent, as good as he was last year, he could be at the bottom of the order, and that's not a slight at him. That just shows you the kind of talent that they have around him.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, even the catcher position, Jacob Galloway, Bear Harrison, Jamal George, all three of those guys are going to hit. The question is, are they going to hit 280? Are they going to hit 300? I made a joke with somebody, at the ADCA a couple weeks ago that, they may not have a guy hit under 300, and that's really difficult to do. And I know that's a very lofty kind of expectation, but it really could be reality. But, Caden Kent, to me, is another guy that's ultra interesting. I mean, you look back at last year, really wasn't in the mix for, a prominent role, is kind of, forced into the rotation of players. Was really good defensively. They couldn't get him out in Omaha. He almost had the hit there in the final game against Tennessee. Then he goes off over the summer at the Cape and also rakes. So, again, if he continues kind of where he left off, it's very scary. It's one of those teams where, Jason Kelly would be mad for me saying this, but it's one of those teams that if they pan out offensively the way they should, you literally could have like a 4.5 to 5 ERA on this team, and you're still winning 50 games.
Talking to Kendall Rogers here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. All right, Kendall, let's talk about Gavin and Jace, the expectations for them this year, the kind of players that they already are, and maybe where Jace is going to be historically when it comes to his place in A&M baseball.
Yeah, what's really interesting, and we'll start with Jace, but what's really interesting about him is, coming out of high school, the knock on him from scouts is that he didn't have a lot of confidence at the plate. He swung and missed a lot. And what's really funny about that is those are the two kind of critiques that scouts had about Dylan Cruz, who obviously player of the year, ended up getting a lot of money in the draft. And Jace is kind of following that same pathway. It's the same concerns. It's the same production after he got on campus in college. And the thing about him is, I think, you look back at last year and the average wasn't, quite what it could be. But I think he's one of those guys this year. I think he's hitting 320, 340 with comparable or better power numbers. I just think he's a really special player. I think, honestly, getting the fall off, the ability to, rest that injury, rest his body, I think it's really going to pay off for him. I think Gavin, again, I say he's a breakout candidate in the sense that I think he'll be a lot more consistent in the zone. Obviously, he showed premium power last year and came out, massive in some big situations, including the home run against the Vols in Omaha. But, I think he's one of those guys that, he cuts down on strikeouts exponentially this year. And again, if he does that, the numbers he's going to put up are pretty ridiculous. But, the thing that's nice about this lineup, especially as it pertains to Jason Gavin, is typically the way teams are structured, you can have clubs that could kind of pitch around them just a little bit. Back when Texas had Ivan Melendez, teams could kind of pitch around him a little bit and not let him, kill you every single bat. But this is a team that, you cannot afford to walk Gavin Grahovic. You cannot afford to pitch around Jace Lavalette because guess what? You got, Wyatt Hensler and Caden Sorrell and, Gavin Cash right after those guys. So, man, it's going to – I say this. It is going to be a fun season if you're an A&M baseball fan because this is what I would call a historic lineup, and they're going to score a lot of runs.
We're talking to Kendall Rogers here on TexAgs Live. So the NCAA is granting junior college players, and I don't know how long-term of a plan this is going to be, but we saw it in football with Diego Pavia getting an extra year. How's it going to change baseball, in your opinion, Kendall?
Well, it would have changed a lot for A&M had this ruling come out 5 months ago. I'm 100% convinced that Evan Ashenbeck could be back at A&M if this ruling came out 5 months ago. So one of those cases of, what if, but it's fascinating. I think when you look at college rosters around the country, they're already old. This would make them even older. And frankly, this would be a situation to where they would make college coaches even more reliant on the portal and older players because, if you're going to Blinn Junior College for 2 years and you're in your third year at Florida and you want to transfer out, I mean, you're talking about a guy that's going to be 23, 24 years old when he comes into your program, as opposed to, bringing in a kid from College Station High who's 17 or 18 years old. So I think it's going to make the rosters older. There's an argument to be made that's not a good thing. The bread and butter of college athletics historically is kind of building kids up from high school and just kind of building that foundation. Now I think it's going to shift it even more so towards the transfer portal. But, I think it's kind of silly to give somebody 6 years of eligibility. But, it's one of those things, again, if you're willing to take the NCAA to court right now, you're either going to win or they're going to just fold and give you whatever you want. And that's kind of what happened here.
Get a last thing for you. I know we talked about Michael earlier, but just talk about the likability factor with him. Such a likable guy. Look, it comes down to wins, right? They got to win. But there's something about his personality that people just gravitate to.
Yeah, and I don't want to promote a story on our site, too much. But, I mean, I did a column today on Early, and I was talking to Tracy Smith, who was his boss at Arizona State, coached Mike in Indiana. And one of the really cool things that, he said, Mike kind of called him out of the blue, back when he was at Arizona State, was like, hey, I don't even want to get paid. I just want to come watch and see what you guys do at ASU. And he just said from that point on, the initiative that he showed to want to learn as a coach kind of sold him on him. As a coach and as a person. And, the thing about him that's really interesting is Mike is not your typical first-year coach. And what I mean by that, in a couple of ways, right? One, he's never been a head coach. So, he's only been a full-time assistant for a couple of years. So that's very unique. But the more important thing for me is he has the mindset of a guy who's been a head coach for 10 years. Whether you talk to him or I talk to him, he knows he's good, and he knows he has the ability to do this job. And honestly, at this level, confidence and thinking you can do it is half the battle, especially when you have a team like you do with A&M. So I think, if A&M had a coach right now with a kind of a passive personality, it might be a little bit of a concern in the first year. But this is a guy who is ready to go out, not literally, but is one of those guys that mentally would be ready to go out there and brawl with his team if he needed to. And I think that's going to mesh really well with this club and certainly probably really well moving forward.
Kendall, great stuff, man. Look forward to our weekly hits here when baseball starts. The February 14th weekend?
Yeah, opening week. It was opening weekend. I think A&M opens at Elon. Of course, it's Schloss's alma mater, so I know everybody loves that.
Thanks for bringing it up, Kendall. Appreciate you.
You got it.
Thanks, man. Have a good one. Awkward silence at the end. I love when it's awkward and silent. It's great. Appreciate that. Right now, if your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during marquee events held throughout the year. We're talking about All Aggie Hullabaloo, The Gathering, Aggie Ring Day. They all welcome tens of thousands of guests. And there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities to get your brand in front of those attendees. And they offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand that include title sponsorship, naming, on-site presence, activation, recognition, and social media posts, and much, much more. There's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie News newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with other Aggies, choose a partner with the organization that's been supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. I don't know about laugh. It's TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Shaking hands with people, something that I like to do. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Callie, we've got 34 seconds. Is there a thought you want me to think about as I go to Buzz Williams in the next segment?
There is probably a few. I have texts, not about basketball, but he says, I know people are talking about the play calling for Texas on the last drive. The penalties in key situations that have happened all year killed them once again on Friday.
Yeah. I'm just happy we don't have to talk about them playing in a national championship game. All right. When we come back on TexAgs Live, Buzz Williams, Billy Liucci, your text messages at 979-693-1150 is TexAgs Live. Hey friends, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is hour number 3 of the program, waiting for Billy to get here in studio. I believe we have Buzz Williams. We may have to reschedule that one, just waiting to hear back. If you have any comments this morning you want to start the show off with, or start the 10 o'clock hour with, you can do that, 979-693-1150. When I think about this basketball team, I was going to bring this up earlier, and then we didn't get to chat about it, but I hope you guys are really enjoying the moment, because we are in a different era of college athletics where you don't get to enjoy teams for multiple years typically, right? There are, but this level of a nucleus to have been together for 4 years does not happen very often anymore in college sports. People are either transferring or they're going to the pro level. And what Buzz has been able to do is keep a nucleus of guys that play a brand of basketball that I think makes A&M fans proud, and guys that you like. They're very likable characters. Like the fact that we've been able to watch Henry Coleman grow here at Texas A&M for multiple years, that we've watched Wade Taylor from this promising freshman to this savvy old vet, and it happened in the blink of an eye, but we've seen the steps that this program has done. We watch Anderson Garcia as this guy that played at Mississippi State, transfer here, and we think he's going to be pretty good, and he becomes the Dennis Rodman of the entire SEC. Right? We've watched it happen, and how much it means. We've watched others kind of just grow in their roles. Hayden Hefner is a perfect example of this season. A guy that, he's had his moments. You're like, I like what he contributes. And this year, he's been huge for them, right? He's had some really key moments. So really enjoy what we have with this basketball team, regardless of missing free throws or losing a game to Alabama. This is a team. And look, honestly, you can say almost the same thing about baseball, right? Baseball, we have a core group coming back that we have seen play for multiple seasons at Texas A&M. Those sports are different than football, where there's a lot more use of the portal and the opportunity, obviously after your junior year, to go to the NFL. But I think for a team that still has not hit at the level that we want them to, basketball, they need to get some wins in March this year. There's no doubt about that. But just watching them grow and watching the brand of basketball that they play, I think is obviously it's just been fun to watch them. And then the new guys that step in seamlessly, right? In Pharrell Payne and others. Billy, I'm just mentioning that we're in a world of college athletics where you don't get to really watch teams grow the way this basketball team has grown. We have watched Wade from this potential freshman guy that we think could be really good to one of the legends in Aggie basketball history, right? One of the names that we're going to remember for a long, long time. We've watched Anderson Garcia's growth from another program to here. Henry Coleman, the same kind of thing. And in today's world of college athletics, I don't think that is it's rare what we're seeing. Baseball, by the way, kind of a similar thing to where you've had these guys grow. This is Jace's junior year at A&M. We've seen that team keep a core group together. I just think it is rare to see that in today's world, and at least from a basketball perspective, it's been fun to see.
Well, baseball, it's a little more normal because so many of those guys are 3 years and done. So they, if they're playing, they're probably not in a race to transfer. It obviously happens, but I think just less so. Basketball, in the way Buzz recruits, it sets up for that, but I think it's been fun. It reminds me a lot of those early teams that, ironically enough, Buzz was a part of, which is everybody still remembers AC, Josh, Dominique Kirk, Josh Carter, Joe Jones, all those guys. They still just remember them like it was yesterday. When they were here a few games ago for the Texas game, some of them, and they're just revered around here. And I think that's the way this core group's going to be looked at as well, because I think they're just part of something that has gotten progressively more special, and you really feel like you get to know the athletes as a fan base.
Let's go to the Boss Firearms Hotline. That's where we're joined by Buzz Williams. Buzz, good morning. We were just talking about how I think it's rare in college basketball and college athletics to have a core group the way you guys have this year with players that we have seen kind of grow. And I'm sure from a coach's perspective, the fact that you get this many games and this many years from your players has been special.
Yes, sir. I didn't hear all of it. I sincerely apologize. I've been studying Kentucky, and I was in the film room, and my day's a little different. So I know, Liucci, you can find me. It's the second time I've been late in 6 years, so I apologize.
I'll take it.
Yeah, on that subject, I say it to our team for sure once a week, sometimes 2 or 3 times. Incredibly grateful. This will never happen again in college athletics. This many years together, whether you're talking about the players only, whether you're talking about the coaches only, whether you're talking about the combination of coaches and players. I believe it's the highest number of years of experience at Texas A&M that we've had since we've been here. And obviously it's the highest number of years of continuity on the staff since we've been here. And relative to the staff, whether we've been here or elsewhere, it's the highest number of years together. So I think that if you're only talking about that, we're for sure on hollow ground, ground that we realize will never happen again. And I think collectively, we're aware of that and very appreciative of that.
Talking to Buzz Williams here on TexAgs Live. Buzz, obviously, life in the SEC, you get good team after good team, a really good team. And here we are, another example of that. You come off the Alabama game, and now already tomorrow you're heading to Kentucky. Just talk about the challenge of taking on such a tough 2-game stretch in the first game without Wade.
Yeah, the offense that Kentucky runs is very unique and completely dissimilar to the offense that we just guarded against one of the higher scoring teams in the country in Alabama. Kentucky is in that same group numerically. They're the 3rd best offense in the country. They do play fast. They do shoot a lot of threes, but it's a different sort of way that they get to it than Alabama does. And so we have been working nearly nonstop since the game ended on Saturday night. I think we had a good couple of hours with our guys yesterday. We're going to start work here as soon as I hang up with you guys on continuing that preparation before we leave for Lexington later today. I think regardless of results, playing last week without 4, as you mentioned, that's part of the SEC too. You're going to play games without some of your players, whether that's us, whether that's somebody else, and there's adjustments that come within that. And then anytime it's a Wednesday, Saturday, and you flip the week to your second week is Tuesday, Saturday, particularly if some of those games are on the road, the preparation time is very compressed. And so you've got to be very succinct in what you prepare your guys to understand. And relative to Kentucky's offense, it's unlike any other team for sure in this league. And so we've got a lot of work to do before tip-off 7 o'clock East Coast time tomorrow.
What I was going to ask you, you mentioned Kentucky and how they play such a different style than Alabama. What would you say, Buzz, in your early prep here? And I say early because it's like 48-hour prep, but what do you see as the biggest difference if you had to describe between Kentucky under Pope versus Kentucky under Cal in terms of style of play?
Yes, sir. No similarities whatsoever.
Really? Wow.
Yes, sir. There's nothing that Arkansas is currently doing that Kentucky is currently doing. Mm-hmm. And I haven't studied Arkansas enough, Liucci, to be able to say, like, they're doing the same things that Coach did at Kentucky. But this offense is pretty that Kentucky plays. Like, if you're a basketball connoisseur and you don't know players and you don't know recruiting and you don't know is this guy an NBA player? Is he a good player? And you just want to watch, like, let's have a coaching clinic. Yeah. And I want to attend all sessions where coaches are speaking and showing pretty offense. Coach Pope could speak at every session of the clinic. It's just really pretty. It's free-flowing. It's 5 out. Everybody can pass, dribble, shoot. They put constant stress on you because of their talent, because of their skill, but it also spreads your defense out. And then when you add their talent and their skill to the scheme, it makes it very pretty to watch, but very difficult to prepare for.
Buzz, how does a team play with so much resilience? Like, I don't. Is it a coach thing? Is it a group of players that your teams always have the staple of playing that same way? 3 times in that game against Alabama, 15-point deficits, but you guys kept on clawing back. We saw what happened at Oklahoma. Is it kind of a learned thing? Is it in you? What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts, but I don't ever want to take credit for that. I think that that speaks to their parents. I think that speaks to you don't play in Norman for the first time and you're down 18 with 17 minutes to play and you go, hey, let's just keep hanging around and see if something happens. I don't think you get down 15 with 10 minutes to play against the top 5 team and go, hey, let's hang around and at the 4-minute mark, we're going to shoot a ball to tie it. I think that comes from years of mamas and daddies saying, listen with your eyes when I'm talking to you. Mamas and daddies saying, we're going to be on time. Mamas and daddies saying, you need to mow the yard and you need to sweep the sidewalk after you mow the yard. And if I see a blade of grass, you can't have ice cream tomorrow. I think there's years and years of that builds resiliency. And I think our staff has been near perfect in regards to vetting and researching and establishing those relationships with those parents to determine, do they fit how we go about our work every day? That's the whole thing. The reason why we have so many years of experience on our team is because of the relationships and the language being similar here in this building to what they heard when they were in their home. And that's why there's still a very high level of communication between those homes and this building, whether it's me, whether it's the manager, whether it's the video coordinator, and all of the sons represented. And I think that when I say some things that I wouldn't say on TexAgs on Monday morning at 10 o'clock, when I say those things to our group and they call mama or daddy and say, Buzz said this, there's a lot of parents on the other line going, that's exactly what he should have said. And I don't think you find that in 2025 anymore. And that's why, to your first question, man, I'm unbelievably grateful for all of the hard things that have led to this. And there's about to be a lot more hard things over the next 9 to 12 weeks. But I think the relationships and the things that are built for 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, this is as raw and as real as you can get. And I'm very thankful for that.
Let me close out with this, Buzz. Let's talk a little bit about Pharrell Payne. He's had 23 Saturday. He's scored in double figures 5 of the last 6 games. Can you just talk a little bit about his development in this team, in this offense?
Yeah, he's just coming around. He's a good player. And from a prospect standpoint, he has a really bright future. He's 19 years old. And I think, to his credit, similar to what I was just talking about, his mom and dad remember us from when we recruited him out of high school. I think that was helpful. And since he's been here, everything we're doing is night and day different than what he had done prior to being here. And to his credit, he's really embraced it. He doesn't understand it, and he wants to figure it out. He's never had to do it this fast. He's never had to do it this intensely. And he's never backed away and said, well, I didn't know it was going to be this hard. But I think our staff was communicating those things long before he ever got here. And so actually, I think his growth curve has been at a really good trajectory. He's a career 40% Big Ten free throw shooter. And Saturday night, he attempted more than he's ever attempted in a game. He made more than he's ever made in a game. And he shot a better percentage than he's ever shot in the game, including the fact that he's never shot that many. But he's been very consistent in working at it, very consistent in what we're trying to accomplish defensively. The 4 block shots, he can always block shots, but in the relation of where he's supposed to be prior to the shot attempt, he's coming around. I still don't even think he's scratching the surface to where he can be. He doesn't defensive rebound at the rate someone of his size and athleticism should. He's improving in his rebounding efforts offensively, but yeah, man, I just, similar to this whole interview, like, I just think he's getting a little better, and he's getting a little better, but he's never been late to a weight room session. He's taking notes in the film room. Like, he's wanting that growth. He's wanting that improvement. And I thought he was really, really good on Saturday. And personally, I thought he did some good things in Norman. And that kind of makes Henry even better, because I thought Henry was tremendous. And now we're playing both of those guys at the same time for the second time this season, partly because Andy didn't have much of a game and had 4 fouls, partly because Solo didn't have much of a game and fouled out. So, like, for us to have another threat, so to say, that can be consistent over time, over the next, hopefully, couple of months, I hope that that elevates not only him, but it also elevates us.
Buzz, we appreciate your time, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay, have a good day.
See you tomorrow, buddy.
Buzz Williams, sir.
I'm going to head up to Lexington.
Oh, you're going?
I think so.
Look at that. Moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. They have a great selection of commercial vehicles with service body trucks, flatbed trucks, several medium-duty trucks for those heavier jobs. And they are locally owned and Aggie operated there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They're a proud supporter of Aggie Athletics, and they have a very strong and committed sales staff with many years of experience satisfying customer needs. They are the premier dealer for commercial vehicles for all of your small business needs. It's not a far drive. We're talking 15 minutes, the edge of Bryanton, the beginnings of Caldwell. A short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people there at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, caldwellcountrychevrolet.com. Back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. As you guys all know, we end the day at 10:50 with double days, but right now we're going to try to give you guys an opportunity to win some double days. Caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We'll hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave. Serving Aggieland since 1984 with your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com in your favorites or on their way. As a reminder, they are not open on Mondays. A little jealous. Lexington tomorrow, huh?
That's the plan. I got to decide. It's a tight week between Dallas, Lexington, and then I think I'm going to go to. I'm debating the Lions game this weekend.
Oh, cool.
Saturday night game it's pretty good. If I can maybe dip out early Saturday, come back Sunday. So. Probably be down on the field for a minute at least. NFL games are weird though because And by the way, just not to derail because I want to talk basketball, but for people texting in, you go read what I said on TexAgs. My explanation was to the nice people, to the people that were like, hey, what were you doing talking to Slosh down there on the game? Why were I'm offended that you laughed or whatever. I explained that. Probably did so more than I felt like, but I was like, there are people in there that are being real people. So the person that's texting right now, that's an in-person conversation. So, and I don't mean that in a da-da-da type way, but that's an in-person conversation if you want to talk like that. So that's that. But anywho, it was an interesting weekend to say the least. Not just seeing Slosh and talking to him for the first time in 6 months, which that's always been a very uneasy thing. I've had coaches leave here. I've had athletic directors leave here. They've been fired. You wonder, will they ever talk to you again? Sure. With the way you cover this stuff. I've not caught up with Jimbo since he left. I would love to do that. Coach Sumlin, I didn't know what our friendship would look like after he got fired from here. Scott Woodward left. Billy Gillespie left. As I'm thinking about going back to Kentucky, I'm like, I went. This one has always been different because of the way it went down, where he left to. And I've been pretty opinionated and vocal about that. So have we all. Even just the way it went down with TexAgs in the presser. Yep. So, I don't, in no world do I regret talking to him down there. It was probably overdue. To be honest, there's probably more that needs to be said in terms of, hey, this is where I had the issue with it. But some people, to me, too many people were asking legit questions. And for those people, I respect. I'm talking about the posters. People in real life, you get the whole, you don't know anybody, and I appreciate that too. Like your decisions as an adult, who you talk, and trust me, there are plenty of Aggies that still communicate, with him. And, I have chosen to where we haven't been together or seen each other since or talked in person since. But to me, like, I read that. I didn't read that thread, but I knew the gist of it because, it's 8 pages on a Saturday night or Friday night. But I got the gist of it, and I go, there's enough people here that I understood their visceral reaction to that. Sure. And, do I think it's, chicken, the guy, whoever took that picture with the purpose of, and the person who posted it, which we'll address that another day and there'll come a day to address the person who posted that. But it's those types and the people that stomped their foot down and demanded this or this and sent me DMs. You don't dictate what I do, what I say, how I live my life, how I respond. You never will. Anybody from the other fan base, you can either appreciate this or take it and run to your message boards. It's fine too. It's the people that were honestly like, man, I didn't like seeing that. Why were you talking? You know, those were the people I felt like, I'll explain it to them because I've talked to my own friends in the last 6 months going, yeah, I don't think, you know, I've been on the other side of that. So, you know, in a way, being hypocritical, I've got friends that are probably like, you lectured me about, you know, so I felt like that'd be a good post to make.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know by the time I wrote it, it was pretty late, but cut my night short, got home from that game, all the traffic. I said, you know what, I'm just going to sit here and address this one. While also watching highlights of Jack Sawyer run down the field for you Longhorns listening. But as far as being at the game, I don't give a damn. Like, and I want to talk about that because I was there in a capacity of credentialed Cotton Bowl, which I've been to other bowl games, not involving A&M many times. Alabama, LSU this year and more than once. Tried to go to Oregon, Ohio State this season. I get it. Well, Texas is in the game. That actually made me want to go more. It actually made me want to go more because I wanted to see, are these guys how do they hold up against Ohio State? To me, that was a big game. If Penn State, Notre Dame had been at the Cotton Bowl, I 1,000% would have been at that game.
Yeah.
And I was on both sidelines. Actually had on the Ohio, because the Ohio State side was all the ESPN crew or the SEC network crew, our guys from there. And then Hinchcliffe, who is on the Ohio State sideline, but also a Longhorn, but also at A&M games. So, I mean, he's living the best life right now. And he's kind of pulling, but he's a big Tressel guy. So, but the guy I did speak to on the Ohio State sideline, of course, was Ross Bjork, which that was, I think, the first time I'd talked to Ross since, and obviously there's not the vitriol, the hard feelings towards Ross leaving for Ohio State. And I think that was probably, everybody agrees that was the best move for all parties involved. But talked to him before the game, and that was good. I've always liked Ross.
Yeah.
I have. I think I talked to him about a week after he took the job, hadn't since. So that he's been in some interesting situations up there right now. You know, he's been in some real interesting situations with their fan base ready to get rid of Ryan Day after the Michigan loss. And now, you know, I like the fact he stood up for Ryan Day after that game. I don't know, but I think the part about the building up the Michigan game too much was probably lost on their fan base. But the part about sticking to Ryan Day, like, you had to know what that team was capable of, and to give up because they lost to a rival. I mean, that's kind of a situation where I think we need to remember that if Texas A&M in a great year in any sport loses to Texas, like particularly if it's in football towards the end of the season, in a 12-team playoff, there are a million different ways to get to a successful season and not beat those guys. And that doesn't mean you don't want to beat their ass every time. And I mean every time in every sport, with baseball being the apex number one of that. But I'll tell you what, Nuño, being down there, it was an eye-opener, and it took me back, unfortunately, about 12 years in that same stadium, which, oh no,
Oklahoma
I was
A&M.
at a different game there, a non-A&M game at that stadium. 12 years ago, I went and watched Alabama and Michigan. And being down on that field for that one, that was before A&M had ever played Bama. And I'm looking at Alabama and Michigan in pregame warmups, and I'm going, this doesn't look like the same game. Like, looks like A&M's playing college football. These teams are playing in the NFL.
Right.
Now, I didn't know as much about Johnny Manziel and what he was going to do at that time, coming off his red shirt. I didn't know that the Aggies were going to be playing back in that stadium later that season after beating that exact same Alabama team, ironically enough. But in that game, I'm sitting there watching them, and I'm going, this is like different level football. And Bama beat Michigan like 31-0, 38-7 that day. I didn't feel quite like that Friday, but watching Texas for the second time in a month field level.
Yep.
The thing that jumps out at me is just how fast they are and how effective they are in space. It also jumped out again that I still don't understand. I said this all off season. I was crucified by a certain fan base 90 miles away. I had questions about the consistency of Quinn Ewers. I thought he was a very good quarterback, not elite. I didn't understand the top 5 hype. I didn't understand the Heisman hype because there was too much inconsistency. And I was, laughed off social media for it and stuck to it. Now they all are singing the same tune. They're ready to see him go. I think he's a damn good quarterback. I don't think he was elite. He was too inconsistent for me, even within that game where I thought at times he was really good.
Yeah.
Same thing with Sark. There is something about, and I would trade offensive. Well, I say that, yeah. I mean, when you watch the offenses, the results, and they're in year 4. I had someone tell me the other night coming home from the basketball game, fun group of Aggie students. They were talking ball outside the office. But one of them said, well, Klein's, his year to prove it was this year. I said, I totally disagree. Like, I think coming up this year, because of what we've talked.
Yeah.
But 4 years in, and I still had questions about the consistency of Sark's offense with the weapons. Banks just turned pro. He's a first-round pick. Jaden Blue's going to be a pro. I know they lost Baxter, who's twice the back. He's going to be a pro. Matthew Golden was a complete stud. A.D. Mitchell, Whittington, Worthy were complete studs the year before that. Wingo, Moore. I mean, you go up and down the list for them. Sanders at tight end to Gunnar Helm. The other tackle who I thought got his butt kicked all day is a future pro. So with all of that, I think people understand now what I was saying about both Sark and Ewers, where there's some kind of inconsistency there. That my only issue with it, because I still think they're a very good offense, but it is, why are we putting this offense, this play caller, this quarterback on a pedestal above the rest of college football? Because I don't see it. I mean, and this has, by the way, zero to do with A&M. We all know how far A&M needs to come. I do think watching that game last night, they really missed Baxter, just like Texas A&M really missed Le'Veon Moss against Auburn and Texas down the stretch. I mean, obviously against USC too, but I mean, those two in particular where you kept getting in those short yardage situations down the stretch of that South Carolina game as well. But there is a bit of irony there in the fact that Texas lost that game because they were unable to punch it in from the 1 yard line.
Yep.
And they did try to do the kind of the thing that Aggie fans and everyone, myself included, was like, do something different.
Sure.
Don't run that thing up the middle. And they tried it, and it got just
it didn't work.
I just think, down there, and you see it a lot in the NFL too, it's so hard to run. Take your one shot at punching it, and then I think it's got to be some kind of, if you've got a mobile quarterback, get him on the move, although that's going to be what's expected.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be some kind of pick action down there to try to get someone open enough, and you have to have that quarterback. You have to just drill it to just get the snap, know where you're going with it, and throw it. And that yard is going to, you think that yard here at Kyle Field is going to haunt us for a long time? That would have brought the Aggies to within 3. I think they would have won that game had they scored there, the Aggies. I think we're celebrating a Texas A&M win over Texas had they got that yard. Because I just think the crowd and, again, Ewers in that offense and pinned down and how up the defense would have been, I think A&M gets that ball back with a chance to tie or win. They didn't because Texas was a better team, and they couldn't punch it in on 3 tries. And they tried, and they didn't do it. I'm saying, had they done it, I think Texas beats Ohio State if they punch it in there, because I think that defense would have been on tilt had they come out, and I think Will Howard throws a pick there. When we come back, and I want to run long today if you can, just
Whatever you want, buddy. I'm here for you.
When we come back, I want to talk about Ohio State because whereas Texas had all that, the speed, field level, 2 games in a row, I'm going, okay, that's where A&M needs to get.
Yep.
And that's why guys like Craver, Hudson, Concepcion, getting Moss back. I love the 2 additions they made in the backfield. And then in the secondary, the continued upgrade. Elko talks a lot about the track times of those guys he signed at DB. Adding a guy like Humphrey in the portal, like you've got to upgrade that back 7 in terms of the speed and athlete. Scooby Williams, not having him these last couple games, I thought was a killer because he was one of those guys. So, but I want to talk Ohio State because that Nuño was, to me, what was the real eye opener.
All right, Milliken Reserve Time, farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got farms, they got wide open spaces. And their mission is to build a healthy community around nature. And they've done so by committing lightly on the land that Milliken Reserve can be found on, creating a sanctuary for family, for nature, and for each other. If you like being in the outdoors, it's the place to go here in the Brazos Valley. Awesome place to go for an awesome hike, biking, canoeing, kayaking, equestrian trails, evening yoga. They have summer camps, they have music festivals, farmer market tours, and farm tours. And they're committed to maintaining and restoring that natural habitat with all the amazing animals you can imagine. White-tailed deer, songbirds, rabbits, and turtles. You can learn more at millikenreserve.com. That website is millikenreserve.com. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. This will be a short segment, but I do want to allow the folks to know that we're going to go long. So if you listen to TexAgs on the Zone, keep it going on with Louie, but also check us out on YouTube or TexAgs.com as we're going to do extended coverage because we haven't been able to get everything in. And we only got 2 short segments left on the radio side of things. So keep Louie on one screen and have us on the other. All right, you want to talk Ohio State?
Yeah, so the Buckeyes, and then hey, have we chased down? I was on the phone when you said that somebody posted.
Not yet.
No reality to that, yeah?
Not yet.
Okay. So that was in regards to somebody posting about Quinn Ewers in the portal, and we're chasing that down to see if that's
There's even a post on the board, too. Yeah, this is not a real on-3.
Yeah, there's a lot of fake ones, so that's why I was. Now, I will say this. Let's start with that. Some of the chatter down at the game and pregame, and there was a lot of, and even friends on the other side, there's been a lot of, I had people that had no affiliation with Texas that are on the NFL side saying that it was pretty common knowledge that that there is truth to the fact that Notre Dame, like Quinn Ewers can play at Notre Dame next year for what I would describe as a very, like, kind of surprised me, even knowing the NIL space. Like, really? And I have never believed it, but I do, like, after the people I talked to, again, they have no affiliation with Texas or A&M, they're NFL people, that have said he really does have a real substantial monetary offer to play a couple places, but Notre Dame in particular. It's like, it was kind of like, I was like, no way, it's that much. And they're convinced of that. And, you know, that's through the pro world because they're trying to decide if he's going to be in that draft. That's the agent world.
Right.
It's very A&M relevant because it has to do with 2 2025 opponents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, does Notre Dame have a quarterback? Does Mike Denbrock get they're about to play for the national title with a guy that, you know, quite frankly, can't throw very well. He's just a winner, a hell of a competitor. But do they go from giving Mike Denbrock a guy that can sling the ball around all over the field? Like, and I say that, I've just said I think Ewers is pretty damn inconsistent. Denbrock, I think, would be a different deal for him in South Bend. I think it could, just to give him a different look, to maybe showcase what he can truly do, throwing the ball, maybe even more than he did. I don't know. I mean, I have zero doubt Sark preps guys for the NFL, but I don't think it would hurt him at all to go to another place because there is a great deal of space for him to improve his NFL stock because a lot of people are kind of questioning it right now in terms of him getting drafted like way up there. He can improve, but he's also played so much college football, and it's like, I'd be saying this about an Aggie for sure. Like, do you want to kind of taint that legacy that you left? And a lot of Texas fans say, what legacy? I'm like, I'm sitting here going, man, y'all are hard on this dude. I'm the one saying he's inconsistent, but some of this stuff, I'm like, do you taint that by going to Notre Dame for a year? I think if I was him, I think he could stand to benefit college football a lot more. I hope the Irish don't get him.
I hope he goes to Ohio State, if not the Irish.
I don't think he'd go back to Ohio. That would be crazy too. But anyway, just interesting. And then the other one that I know the Cowboys and Jerry Jones, and they're keeping Olin's best friend.
I don't know. He now he can negotiate with other teams as of today.
There's a lot of chatter, and there was a lot of chatter where a lot of people were wondering if it wasn't just Quinn, but also Sark walking off in burnt orange for the last time. I don't believe that. I think when push comes to shove, like if Texas or A&M or Alabama, like if they really want to keep a coach, I would have said the same about OU, and then they let Lincoln Riley go. But in college football, with the amount these guys are paid and how much they kind of rule over their kingdom, it is like just like A&M keeping Jimbo from going to LSU, just like A&M keeping Sumlin from going to USC. And I know, and I agree, like to a fault, right, with the amount of money. I think if I have a hard time imagining Texas wanting to keep Sark unless that thing's dysfunctional, wanting to keep him and him leaving. The only thing I will say is, number one, if it's the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm skeptical of that. I'm not buying that one. But number one, if it's him. Number two, we see coaches do weird things now in the day and age of portal and NIL. And it's just like when everybody watches the Lions and they go, oh, we want Dan one day. Maybe one day when things settle, but I don't think you're going to see any pro coach rushing. You know, Belichick's doing it at North Carolina, but he had nothing to do right now. Any pro coach rushing into the college ranks right now because of what everyone knows about it. And I know we all watch it and go, man, this is a mess. Imagine what the coaching community knows about it. So that's the only reason I think if you're a fan in the SEC, in College Station, in Austin, that's the only thing I would say, like, I'll be interested to watch the next few weeks. My expectation that there's any kind of movement like that is extremely low, but that would be just obviously a massive bombshell.
All right, we'll come back with another segment, and we'll go long on YouTube and on TexAgs.com. Right now, the difference is real. Rollo Insurance is an independent insurance company built around educating you on exactly what you're paying for. They do the shopping for you so that you can accomplish all of your insurance goals. They have 60 offices in the great state of Texas. They're worldwide, or nationwide, I should say, but their headquarters is right here on Highway 6. And if you have a plan it's just a plan, right? You need to have somebody who can manufacture and get you in the area that you need to go. When the going gets tough, sooner or later, you're going to have an issue. And when things happen, you need to have a place that you can call, that you're not calling a call center or an automated phone system. You need your own personal agent, and you can get that with the Rollo Insurance Group. They're good at making sure that you get taken care of. The website is rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs. Again, that number, the website is rolloinsurance.com/TexAgs, or call them up, 888-44-ROLLO. Final segment of TexAgs Live on the radio. We are going to go a little bit longer. So, Billy, we've talked the college football playoffs. We've talked a little bit about basketball, but we didn't really get to go into the Kentucky game and also what we just watched Alabama-wise. You want to kind of close out with that?
Well, yeah. Here's the deal. So just before the game, going around down there, Ohio State, where they really looked at, okay, I mean, their skill got like their DBs, their receivers, the receivers were so big and physical looking, and but they're also, I mean, they're first round picks. They're freshman receivers as good as any player in the country, right? Even though he didn't have much of an impact on Saturday. I don't think Will Howard's great at all. Like, I think he's a solid quarterback. He's so far from elite that it's why I give Notre Dame even a chance. Like, I think if they can cause him some problems, they can get those turnovers they're so well known for and keep it close. But I think that watching them, man, it's before the game even and during the game, first of all, their skill guys, like Quinshon Judkins starred in the SEC.
Yeah.
Starred. Led the league in rushing. Devastated Ole Miss when he left, to the point that they started making up, every excuse in the book about him. But he's so far distant number 2 in that backfield to Henderson. But you watch the way those guys finish. That, to me, was a difference between Texas and Ohio State at the skill spots where there's a lot of NFL guys. Those dudes would finish runs with the football. They would run through those Longhorn tacklers and get that extra yard or two at the finish. And you could see that effect that would have. You could, watching it down there, and I was kind of bouncing up, down, all around, but watching it from an end zone or from the sideline, you could just see that they had pros galore. But where it stood out most was on the line of scrimmage. Their O-line, they all look like, every one of them looked like Basantis. Donovan Jackson, who's one of their starting tackles, who's from Episcopal here, that A&M recruited, it's in that class with Reuben Fothery, with Bryce Foster, with Connor, who went to Texas. I think Crownover may have been in that class. They had a lot of dudes in Texas that year. Donovan Jackson was one of them. He's probably the smallest one. They all look like Basantis, who's A&M's biggest, most physically imposing guy. All look like that. But on the D-line, it's like every one of their ends look like something between Shamar Stewart and Myles Garrett, a couple of them. And their inside guys, the biggest difference to me when I looked at them versus like, a pro and Shamar Turner and Regis and Hicks and the guys A&M has coming back, it's the height and kind of the profile of them. They're taller, they're longer, every one of them was about this wide.
Right.
They look like boxes, the inside guys. And you're watching them warm up and you see how explosive they are. And I think for as much as we talked about the A&M D-line coming into this year, and there were 3 pros, 2 high draft picks in pro, it's still like when you look at the room, that's still an area where I think they need to just keep pounding away because you want to be elite here. And in a world where you can spend money to be elite, there's no reason not to be elite.
Right.
And this is Elko and his staff's first full portal and recruiting cycle. It genuinely was. But what I saw from Ohio State reminded me of what I saw from Bama when A&M first joined the SEC, from LSU, who really has slipped down, from Georgia. That's what Ohio State looks like, and that's why they beat Oregon.
Did you have the same thought about Notre Dame when you saw them?
Their O-line only.
Okay.
Even though their defense is really good, their O-line, it stood out, which, by the way, was the position we thought they were going to get wrecked on because they were so inexperienced. That line's turned out to be pretty damn good.
Yeah.
They held up against Georgia. They held up against Penn State defense that I think is really good. But, yeah, Notre Dame's O-line that stood out. And a lot of it, man, I'm telling you, is when I say profile, I mean like the height combined with the size on both lines of scrimmage. And so if I'm Elko and his staff, and I think this is what they're doing, that's what I'm really looking for in recruiting and in the portal. And if you look at this O-line class, and Bronny, I think, wrote about it a little bit when they got there, those guys have that look. Those guys, like, they signed a really big, physically imposing looking offensive line class. And I think that's A&M kind of got there to where I had scouts coming through going, yeah, you guys look like Georgia, Bama. And it was kind of fleeting there under Jimbo.
Yeah.
They got to get back to that. What we're trying to do is win a freaking national title here. And to come out of the SEC and do it, you generally can't lose more than 2 games. There's going to be a year where a 3-loss team gets in there, but you generally can't lose more than 2 games. And so, look, to do that, and I looked at A&M and Texas's schedule this year already because SEC Mike, did you see that?
No, I didn't see it.
SEC Mike put out, I thought, an interesting. They put the rankings out.
Their rankings or
their rankings for next year's SEC. Do you want to hear them?
Yeah, I'd love to hear this.
1, Georgia, 2, Texas, and I'll go in order. LSU at 3. I think people are buying into they have hyped their portal class so much. Someone said Donovan Green is giving them as much portal credit, like in their rankings, as Concepcion did coming to A&M. Like, I like Donovan Green.
I can too.
I think Donovan Green, but he didn't play this year. It's not politics. He was injured and coming back and wasn't himself. And I still needed to develop a lot as a player, and he may very well do that in Baton Rouge. I would say I hope he does, but I hope he does except for a football game. I hope he doesn't help them get a bunch of momentum because we don't want to see another team near us achieving. But I think to put them there, I think people are giving way too much credit to their portal class. It got hyped early. I don't think many of those guys are game-changing guys. I think they're just I don't think their portal class is any better than what I saw A&M sign.
Georgia, Texas, and then
LSU, then Bama.
Okay.
Bama sends Jalen Milroe with everything that went down there this year. Then Ole Miss, probably a total wild card. Then South Carolina. Frankly, I think I'd move them up. They did suffer some real losses on defense. Then Florida. I think they might be the biggest wild card in the conference because I think everybody expects Lagway just to take them to be like a national champion, playoff contender, but they also – then Tennessee. That's a big fall off for them.
Yeah, huge.
Then Auburn.
Okay.
Texas A&M at 10. That better not end up being true. A&M does not need to be the 10th best team in the SEC. This is one person's prediction. And I actually understand putting the Aggies behind some of these teams. They just have to go out and prove that that's not true. Then, okay, here we go. Vandy, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Mississippi State. So the joke was, of this top 8, Texas plays 2 teams, Georgia and Florida. From 10 to 16, they play 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Their 2-year stretch that they were handed in this conference will be studied by future SEC football generations.
Yeah.
It is exceptional. And of that group, A&M, Vandy, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Kentucky, Mississippi State, the only team that I could see cracking back into that top half is A&M.
Right.
The other ones are kind of not. They have no chance to get out of there. But now look at A&M's. They play number 2, number 3, which I just said I think is overdone. 6, 7. So 4 of the top 7. And then they draw 9, 12, Missouri, 13, Arkansas, and 16, Mississippi State. So it's a nice balance. And like I said, I don't think the Florida Gators are world beaters. I don't think South Carolina are, or Auburn. And they're all coming to you.
Right.
And I said, I think LSU is going to be my early pick for as overrated a team as there's going to be next year. They need to go 3-0 at home against Florida, Auburn, and South Carolina. And they play Mississippi State at home. And I would say they need to go 4-0 at home next year in the SEC. They have to. And if they do that, and you got a road game against Missouri and a road game against Arkansas, like, for as much as we'll talk about the schedule Texas is given, there's a real opportunity there for a good A&M team. So they have to be good. If you're a good football team next year here in College Station, if Marcel Reed makes that jump, if you get your running backs back, and with what they return on the O-line, this should, and in the portal at receiver, this should be a good offense next year. There's no excuse not to be. Everyone knows that across the street. Like, it should be a really good offense. Defensively, I think they've got to make a massive jump on the back end, the back seven, and a lot to replace on the D-line. But Mike Elko, that's going to be his, like, crusade, because he can't sit there after that USC game and basically say, we're never going to see that again here. He drew a line in the sand.
Yeah.
He planted a flag there and said, that's it. And so he's going to spend his whole offseason figuring out how to make that happen. I think part of it's going to be whether that's, the defensive coordinator position, or probably more likely whether that's going to be just him looking at the process and changing it, which might mean, hey, as the head coach, I'm going to call the defense. I think that's on the table. So whatever it is, if they can field a good football team next year, and I don't know what I mean by good. If A&M's one of the top 15 teams in college football, then that schedule is very manageable. If let's just say they were the 15th best team in college football, that schedule would be very manageable next year because of the home and away split.
Yeah.
So, anywho, that's I do think those games. I threw in. Who was the third home game we threw in there? We said South Carolina, Auburn, Florida. They went 1-2 against those teams this year, and I think they need to, at home go 3-0 in that one. I think if they do that, that's going to be the foundation of a really successful season.
I believe Mike McCarthy is out at the Dallas Cowboys. I got to fact check this. Tom Pelissaro. Mike McCarthy out as a coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Sides couldn't agree on a length of a contract. McCarthy will pursue other opportunities.
Couldn't agree on a length. That's a good way of saying it.
We didn't want to.
I mean, look, I think McCarthy walked into it. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go into it. I think that dude's a good coach. He's not good enough to get that Dallas Cowboys team where they need to go.
Yeah.
So you change. I think he's going to go have success somewhere else. He's had success somewhere else.
Yeah.
It just didn't work. I think that's an interest. Now, who are the names the Cowboys are throwing out? Is anybody paying attention as we sit here?
Not yet.
Because I'm sure it takes all of about 3 minutes.
Well, Stark's the name that keeps coming up, but that's.
If Jerry Jones really wanted him in 2025, I'm sorry. Oh, wrong year. If he really wanted him, that's the one job that would seem the hardest to turn down. I don't know. We'll see. I do think it's ironic that CDC was having to, even if he stays, having to bat down rumors the week of a big game of a coach leaving Austin. But I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it there. So, and honestly, like for me, I don't, anytime Texas has a chance to hire a coach, you run the opportunity of I say this about A&M too. There's always the opportunity of an upgrade. I know his last couple of years what the results have been, but I still I don't think that thing should strike fear into teams around the SEC. I think Texas is going to exist and do well in the NIL era unless they make like a really bad hire. I think their threshold, it's pretty high of what succeeds and what doesn't in the NIL era there.
Yep.
Where I think it would be the most interesting, as sitting here as an Aggie, is that's a bombshell that would drop on the SEC and the region, and that is a very, very talented roster and recruiting class. And this would not be a college coach going to another college where guys would follow him.
Right. You'd be going to the pros.
You'd be going to the pros, and it would be interesting to see, like, as just sitting here as an Aggie, you're going, and if you're Mike Elko, forget that there's a steer on the helmet. Look, if it would be like if Ryan Day left Ohio State right now, or if DeBoer left Alabama, or if Les Miles, wow. Les Miles had more success. If Brian Kelly left LSU, like, that's a ton of talent, and you could see an exodus. It's what people thought were going to happen when Slosh left A&M and went to Texas. And we did have some really big names going in the portal. Now, I don't think many, if any of them, intended on going there. I think they were planning to go elsewhere, depending on the hire. Thank God it was Mike Early. But I'm telling you, like, that to me is why I'm most interested in this, is to see, there will be a lot of receipts to pull and be checked on. There are a lot of people that have been really mouthy, but that's just the fun side of it. The other side of it, the real side, would be, how does that affect Texas A&M? And anytime you can get some kind of movement like that at that position coming off this kind of season, that benefits Texas A&M, it benefits Oklahoma. But more specifically, like, how can A&M benefit in terms of the roster?
Yeah.
In terms of recruiting in this state in the 26 class, there's that period of uncertainty. The Aggies had a huge weekend this weekend in terms of talent on campus. That's where you can claim momentum going into a cycle, and that's why I'm going to be paying the most attention to it. But again, color me very skeptical. Where do you sit on that? Do you see that happen?
I don't see it. I see start getting some kind of extension in the next 48 hours.
Yeah. I mean, look, the reality is they've been in the national semifinals 2 years in a row. Mm-hmm. They've been to the playoff. You can question the path to getting there.
But they're there.
They're there. You can question a lot of paths to get there.
TCU a couple years ago,
TCU's path. I question Notre Dame's path.
Yeah.
They're there, though. They're playing for a national title. Any of us would say, give us that path. Let us get there. And by the way, you have to be good enough to get there. And there's still not that many teams this year that would have gotten it. So, yeah, I'd have a hard time. At places like this, like Austin, like Baton Rouge, like Tuscaloosa, Gainesville, Knoxville, you just don't typically see those coaches leave. But you do. There are examples. Lincoln Riley left Oklahoma. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame. Lane Kiffin left Tennessee. Dennis Franchione left Alabama. Like, you see it.
It does happen.
It's just not common.
Who's had real success doing it, though?
Well, that would be the other question you'd ask yourself, right?
LSU thought they had a success that first year, and they may get back to that.
Listen, that's the advice that I would have given Jim Schlossnagle if he would have had any window to say, like, what the hell are you doing? I think it worked out. I think it worked out for the kids. I think
we got our guy.
Work out for Aggie baseball. In fact, we're almost to it. I wonder if it's going to work out in Austin for him. They got all the pieces, all the tools, all the history. It's just funny how those things work out. And I say that as I'm probably heading to Lexington. I keep saying probably. The people I'm going with are probably pissed I'm saying probably. But as I'm going over to Lexington, like, you know, the last time I was there was to go see Billy Gillespie. Went with
when Logan was on the staff?
Yeah, and PD. Went up there, and second year, a couple weeks later, he got fired. We joked that was the last game they won was the one we were at.
Yeah.
They went on a tailspin. They were in first place in the SEC. It was the weak SEC. It wasn't what it is. Beat Bruce Pearl in Tennessee by like 20, and then it just it kind of spiraled out. And he went where the grass was greener.
Yeah.
And that was one where people went, "Oh yeah, that's explainable." And people were pissed and people were upset he left, but they were like, "That's explainable. It's Kentucky basketball." But unlike with Slosh, I did have that conversation with Billy Clive. We were sitting at Outback. I'll tell this story. It's pretty funny. He's getting courted by Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
And we were sitting in one of those little, I'll never forget, because like, if those of you that are here, by the way, Outback used to be where everybody would go, the bar. And so the bar's sitting here and we're in one of these 2-person booths. And we're talking about Arkansas. They wanted him. And I'm like, man, you've got it. And this is what I would have said to Slosh. You've got such a situation here. Why on God's green earth would you ever leave? Same deal. Like, they're going to build a statue of you. You're going to go, like the team you have coming back, you should have been in a Final Four this year. You could have been in one. You have a chance to go the next year. You know, they had DeAndre Jordan coming in. They had Brian Davis, Ilanu, Sloan, Roland, BJ. You know, they had a real squad. Josh Carter. Oh, hell no. They still had Joe Jones and Dominique. They lost AC.
That was it, yeah.
And AK, and that was about it. But we're talking about that, and I'm like, what are you going to do? And it's kind of the same thing I would have said. What are you going to do at Arkansas basketball that hadn't already been done?
Right.
What are you going to do at Longhorn baseball that hadn't already been done? Like, what's the... So I'm going on and on about this Arkansas thing and why you shouldn't go and da-da-da. He gets a call and sends outside, and it takes forever. I'm like, man, that's a long phone call. Comes back, said, so he goes, you don't think I should go to Arkansas? I said, no, I just spent 30 minutes telling you. He's like, all right. He's like, what about if Kentucky called? He's like, what about the Kentucky job? And I took for a second. I went like this. I'm like, oh man. I go, was that Kentucky?
Yeah.
Yeah. And after my initial recovery, it was like, man, I just don't know how that fits. This fits for you. This is like the perfect setup. Like you have, this is where you're supposed to be. But that allure, and it was, on the one hand, you understand it. On the other hand, you kind of look at it and go, man, you could, and I think even he knew the potential was there for that to go sideways. Just the way he coached, and it wasn't like, it's similar in ways to Buzz. Like, Buzz doesn't want to go out, and everybody wants talent, but you heard him today.
Yeah.
He doesn't want just a team full of millionaire 5-star move around to 18 AAU teams since they were in 8th grade type guys on the roster. That's not how he coaches. That's not going to work. And I thought that was my deal with that. But again, a lot of good my conversation did. But that it is how it is, and that's how it's crazy because I've had the same conversation with Kevin Sumlin about USC. I did not have that about Jimbo and LSU. I was too busy trying to find out and make sure that was or wasn't happening, And by the way, you had a former A&M AD, who a lot of people are still very good friends with, including me, who was out there actively trying to hire
Jimbo,
the Texas A&M football coach. So it's just a weird world sometimes. It really is. But I love, and I hope they keep this together. And I think that's on, a lot of that is Trev Alberts and the powers that be here. You got some good damn coaches at Texas A&M right now. Exciting young ones. You think of Early, you think of Morrison, you think about Weaver and Chadwell on the women's side. You think about like the big three of, Trisha Ford and what she's done over there. And I know I'm going to leave somebody out, I'm not naming every sport, but then you think of the big three. And I think on the day that Texas A&M baseball comes out ranked number 1, what an opportunity for Mike Early in year one and that staff. And then You think about what Buzz is doing in basketball right now. And then you think about like Mike Elko. Again, everybody's doesn't really know how to feel after year one, but I think there was plenty that I saw to give me optimism moving forward. And I continue to see it in terms of what they're doing portal-wise. Not just what they're bringing in, but again, we're through the portal for A&M. They lost one guy. I'm not saying depth doesn't matter. And they might lose a couple more in the spring. Everybody will, and they'll replace him. But they lost one guy that I truly saw a group fight to keep. One off the entire returning football team. It's a big freaking deal.
Noah.
Yeah, for sure. And look, it's a position that I think still upgraded.
I agree.
They wanted to keep Noah, and I totally understand why. I was disappointed that he left to go there. Mm-hmm. I think he went in the portal because he was going to Georgia. And I know that could have changed. That doesn't mean like A&M had no chance. They didn't. But I thought he went in the portal to go to Georgia, so that made it pretty hard to keep him.
Yep. Billy, thank you, sir. Enjoy your trip.
Is that it? Free throws. Free throws, man.
20 missed.
You talked about Pharrell Payne. He went 11 of 15 from the line.
He was
For a
huge.
big man to do that at the
Who
line
has
is
struggled this
incredible.
year.
Yeah, that's incredible. Without Pharrell Payne, they were probably under 50% minus his. I mean, that was, you know what? And it is something. I understand not wanting to publicly make a big deal of it, coaches, and you don't. And I also understand not wanting to over make a big deal of it with your players. But I will say, like, missed free throws are why A&M lost to U of H. It's why they didn't. They could have potentially been in a Final Four last year. They could have beaten Duke, that Duke team. They could have beaten them, and they could have beaten NC State, both of which would have been in Dallas. Free throws are why they lost that game.
Yeah.
And that's why they lost this one to Bama. Now, with that said, you could have given me Wade Taylor on this team, and A&M could still have very easily lost to Bama or Kentucky. Like, these are elite basketball teams they're playing right now. And
You hit
A&M
5 or 6 more free throws, though, I think.
No, I know. In that game, the way that game went. But I'm saying, if you tipped it off tomorrow and had Wade Taylor and had Bama come in here, Alabama would still have a very good chance to win that game. And the reason I say that, they're a matchup problem. A&M's a matchup problem for them, too, with the way they guard and defend. But the way Bama shoots those threes is a nightmare, particularly Sears and who was it that was banging them? It was Sears and Holloway. 3 of 6. Sears was 4 of 10. 7 for 16 from 3. That and the one thing that stood out to me, and I will be very surprised, Nate Oates will have failed this year if he does not get them to a Final Four. That team has that much talent. And to have Sears leading the charge, and then the Grant Nelson, who was in foul trouble throughout, but they were so big. When you look at Solomon Washington with 1 point and 2 rebounds in 15 minutes, and you look at Andy Garcia with 1 point,
2 rebounds,
and 2 rebounds in 24 minutes, that's 39 minutes of Solo and Andy and 4 rebounds and 1 point.
And that's what they do.
And they get a lot of points on putbacks and stuff. And that's not so much, and I know they would disagree, say it's on them, and Buzz would say, well, no, they're expected to do. But, man, watching that game, and you see in person how big Alabama is, and their dudes stayed in foul trouble. But they just sent guys, and they just chewed up fouls, came out with another guy, 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot. Another guy went out, came in with that. So they had the one thing that I don't think there are that many teams that can give A&M that kind of problem with size in the front court and just do it. Because even teams that do have a little bit, the Aggies, the way they play, can get you in foul trouble. didn't phase these dudes.
Right.
It did not phase them. Final thing, shame on those refs. You guys sucked.
Yes, you do.
That was awful. 50 fouls? No. Was it 50? Yeah, it was like 50 fouls, 48 free throws.
27 and 31.
48 free throws and like 50 total fouls in that game. And they
58.
58 fouls?
Yep.
And they set the tone like in the first few minutes of the game. I also think the Aggies set the tone for missed free throws in the first few minutes too.
Yep.
And you had guys that normally make them missing them. So, anywho, going up to Kentucky, you know what I'd like to see most tomorrow night is I want to see Manny Obaseki get a little bit back to what because that was such a big deal. And they need, obviously number one is get Wade back and healthy. That's going to be the biggest difference maker. But, man, when we're talking about, like Rothstein said, this team can go to a Final Four, and they do certain things that are going to make them an unbelievably tough out in the tournament. But, man, remember the effect Manny had last year when he got it going. Like, down the stretch, in Nashville, in the tournament, like, that's what I would love to see him get back. He needs to get in that mentality and get that mindset back, that attacking mode. This dude was burying threes. He wasn't missing free throws. He was scoring, bless you, 25, 30 points a game. So if I could see something out of the Aggies tomorrow, I would love to see Manny get it back on the offensive end.
And I'll end it with this. Henry Coleman, great double-double. He and Pharrell
playing
Payne.
his butt off. He's playing his butt off.
Thank you, Billy.
All right.
See you guys next time. TexAgs Live. Bye.